Hey, coffee in the cup, sun just hitting that chrome. Wipe that mirror, fire it up. This is the detailer's home. Hey, welcome to Polisher's Corner, where the shine goes deeper than the paint. From gravel roads to show day glow, we're chasing that perfect, ain't it great? Buff it up, talk it out, pull on in. Polisher's Corner. Let the stories begin. Polisher's Corner. Yeah. Bring that shine on in.
And all right, so we
Here we
are
go.
in Polisher's Corner, season 6, and this is going to be episode 5. And I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am for this. Um, this fella here introduced himself to myself by commenting on one of my posts a few years back, and I started following him, and I was instantly blown away. Him and I are going to relate on a lot of different topics, and I'm really excited to get into that. The episode before this, we actually talked to somebody from Canada, so we've had somebody on the show now officially outside of the US. And this one is even further outside of the US, but still has a tie to Canada. He just told me, so that's even more exciting. But I'd like to introduce everybody to Steve here. I'm gonna let him do more of the introducing to explain who he is, where he's from, all that stuff. But we're going across the pond to the UK for this episode. And go ahead, Steve. Tell everybody who you are, where they can find you.
Well, Evan, it's amazing. We actually have a proper connection. I actually bought one of your T-shirts, and I wear
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
Yeah, remember Time to Shine? I bought the hoodie, I bought a T-shirt, and sometimes I wear it on some of my teaching gigs just to start the ball rolling a bit more, sort of easygoing, And so Time to Shine is a really good sort of thing to say, to everybody.
You know what's funny is one of my first tattoos, my right arm is a complete sleeve of my life. So one of the first things I did was I collect
Oh yeah,
watches.
Time to Shine, yeah.
I put a Time to Shine watch on my sleeve so that when people would ask me what time it was, I'd look at it at a show and I'd go, "Oh, it's time to shine." So when we developed our own product, our own buffs, compounds, liquids, all of that stuff, we decided we were going to just name it Time to Shine. So we
Yeah.
stuck with it, and it was a great conversation starter at shows for me as well. And it just kind of worked out. Everything just kind of fell into place.
And the Polisher's Corner is a really good name for this because we don't have a lot of polishers in the UK, and they're all be saying to me, "What are you doing over in the USA?" I say, "Well, I have a lot of truck polishers that actually follow me because we've got the same sort of idea, the way we do it. But with me, I was polishing things maybe up to 6 foot high, but you're polishing beyond that. You're polishing like trucks. And I always used to say, I've polished the biggest things in the world, but not like you. But the
You know,
metal does react differently for you to me, whereas I'm only polishing precious metal,
right.
and that we measure that in like a hardness. So your stainless steel, say diamond is a 10, so stainless steel is about 5 on a hardness scale, so it's halfway, whereas silver is about 3.
Yeah.
So it's quite simple for me to polish. So it's a bit like maybe polishing copper. So it's quite a soft metal. So, and also obviously I'm polishing on a fixed machine, like you call the Mido maker, and it's going around at just roughly about 3,000 revs per minute, and it will not slow down. It's 2 horsepower. It doesn't muck around, but what that does for you is that means that you can do things quicker. So if you go onto a smaller machine like you're doing when you're doing flexi,
Yeah.
it will slow down as you apply the mop. Whereas for me, it doesn't slow down. It just
Yeah,
goes for
the
it.
torque is completely different
Yeah,
between a
yeah,
handheld machine and a stand-up lathe. Um, the stand-up lathe, like you're using, there is no give in it because it's 100% torque. Once it's engaged, it's on, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's no room for torque loss. I do have people that'll buy like a cheap one. We have Harbor Freight over here,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
sell the little cheap ones, right? Those ones you can bog them down, but if you buy a proper, like I've got a Baldor, an old Baldor machine, and mine's like a 6 horse, that
wow,
machine will tear your arm off and beat you over the head with it because
yeah,
you
yeah,
literally fall into it and it's not going to stop running. It'll just keep running. I mean, until you flip that switch off, it's going to keep running. It doesn't matter
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
bound up in it or
We
not.
They used to have a game where when I was an apprentice, they used to grab the spindle, both arms, and then stop it. It was about 2 horsepower. Some of them were 3, but no more than that. So they used to stop them like that because these guys have been in the trade for a long time, and they just did
Yeah.
it. But I've had one guy, there was no drinking on the job, and one time I remember he went out to lunch. He went down the pub and then come back drunk. He touched the spindle, tried to stop it, burnt his hand completely, all blistered up, and it's so dangerous. Over here, they try and encourage you to put a sleeve on the spindle, but
Yeah.
this is health and safety. But the new machine I have actually just stops as soon as I press the button. It would just stop.
It's
There's
got a
no
brake
mucking
in it,
around. It just
internal brake.
goes. They have a
Yeah.
brake on them.
Yeah.
But the sleeve is like a pain because you grab it and then it takes a long time for it to slow down. Whereas I stop instantly, change the tool, and you carry on. And a lot of companies, they might have it's two spindles that are separated, so it doesn't bother the other guy. So you'd be on a machine and you're working away, and then basically the other guy carries on working. Yeah,
Sure.
so it's 2 machines in one on a
Inside,
bench.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
quite
I just trained in
handy.
Ohio, and that's what they had is they had a huge stand-up lathe that had I think it was 8 horse motor on it,
Yeah,
but it had two separate spindles. You could turn one side on and leave the other side off,
yeah, yeah,
or you could turn them both on individually or both at the same time. If you had 2 operators, you could run them both. But I want to touch on something real quick that you said a
yeah.
little bit ago, that there was 6 polishers in the UK there with you. How big is the UK? Like, it's a place that I want to go visit sometime. But if you were to drive from the north end to the south end, east end to the west end, how long would it take you to get across those
It's
four?
a bit. I just did a gig in Scotland, and it took me 8 hours to get to the border of Scotland. So it might take you about from top to bottom. Might take you 24 hours maximum to do
Wow,
the drive
that's a long
to the
drive.
top to the
It's bigger
bottom.
than I thought.
Yeah, bigger. Yeah, I mean it looks small on the map, but obviously I've been asked to come to America to teach, but with over there, it'd be having to catch a plane. Over
Yeah,
here, I can just jump in my car and
yeah.
do a tour. Like I've covered thousands of miles teaching, not returning maybe for a month, just to sort of get the job done and teach.
Wow.
Like I'll go to Ireland, and then I'll come back from Ireland, and I might go to Birmingham, and then I go a bit further up. I go to Edinburgh, Glasgow. I'm where I am. I'm a place called Glastonbury, which is like a festival. We've got a big rock festival in Glastonbury, and that's
Sure.
sort of we call it the Southwest. And so I'm just before the leg of like they got Devon and Cornwall. So I'm
Okay.
near. It would take me still to get down to the bottom of England, Cornwall, maybe 6 hours. Just to
Wow.
get down to the bottom. Because the roads are not like yours. They're like we got what we call motorways, and our
Okay.
speed limit is 70 mile an hour.
Okay.
But on the other roads, you could be doing 40 mile an hour, maybe 50,
So it's a
and
lot of
then
slow speed
maximum
driving.
is 60 on those sort of
Okay.
roads. And there's cameras everywhere, speeding cameras everywhere.
Yeah. They've got some of those here too.
Yeah.
But I didn't
And we have
realize that.
another
So
little con, which is average speed limit. So they click you at the beginning of the road and then click you at the end, and then they work out the average speed limit, and it's got to be 50. So I've got a button on my car that I press to tell me my average speed limit before I start, and then I'll press it when I leave.
that's wild. We have some tollways like Florida. Florida has a tollway. You click in when you get there and you click in when you go out the other end, and they know about how long it should take you to get there. So I'm a habitual speeder. I'm not going to hide behind it, but I usually just stop at one of the fuel stations and do a little walk around while I'm there so that I can
Yeah.
justify going
Just
fast, which is silly. I should just go the speed limit and be fine, but
yeah.
that's how I get around those. But yeah, we don't have an average. We don't have to get through at a certain speed. You just have to be less than the time that they require,
That's
or
right. Yeah, less than
they
the
just
speed.
charge you a
Yeah.
little higher. And it's honestly not that much either. It's like a $20 more for the cost of it to get through the tollway there, but it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So six polishers in
Yeah.
that's actually a pretty big area then. If you've got six
Yeah.
polishers,
Because we're also like in London, because I can, although I'm not in London now, we would. It's an interesting story that when I did my apprenticeship, which was in 1971, there were 7 polishers, and then I did transfer when I became 21. I I transferred, and there were still 7 polishers in another workshop, and then I went to the next workshop, and there was only 4 of us, and this was the beginning. Then suddenly one guy leaves, there's 3 left. Then the guy who was my foreman, he was 69. They made him retire. So then I ended up with 2 people, me and another guy who's now died. And he was sort of my apprentice. And then he left. So I was on my own. And then I ended up getting another guy who was who I'd done my apprenticeship with. And he come to join me for about 9 years. Then the original apprentice came back. And so when I left London, well, first part of London, in 2003, there was only maybe 4 of us in the workshop. But
wow.
now there's only, in the whole of London, there could be, in one company, there's like maybe one guy and he's got a few women working with him. And then there's another guy on his own, and that's it, on my level. And then we've got loads of jewellery polishers. It's like, I go to companies where they're polishing jewellery, and there could be 20 in a company. But
Sure.
I'm not like that. I'm doing big things. And in Sheffield, which is halfway up England, whereas me, I would get a job and I'd do it from start to finish, was they have it broken up into sections. So they have a person that does all the cutting. So I'll
Yeah.
call that first stage. Then we have
Yeah.
another person who's done the first shine, second stage. And then the final guy is doing it like that. And at the end of my apprenticeship, I'd done 3 years, and then I went into my 4th year and I hadn't finished anything. And I was thinking, oh, when am I going to finish anything? You get up to a certain stage and then another guy does it. This is even in London. So they go through to the plater, the person does all the silver plating and he cleans the job. Then it went into another workshop for finishing. What happened was I ended up in that workshop polishing or finishing 7 polishers' work. So I got really good at finishing. I didn't care
Huh.
about all the cutting and the stage 2s and all that. I'm thinking I can just do the finishing, and people give me the work for finishing. So anyway, I went to another company. They had the 7 polishers, and they had one up the road who was 8, and there were 60 craftsmen, 60 silversmiths working in this company. It's absolutely amazing that because we haven't got them anymore. There's nobody. So, and then eventually I went to work for the Crown Jewellers. So there was 4 of us, and then it ended up being 2. And then I ended up maybe for about 9 years working on my own. So then I would send out for big stuff. I would send it out to another polisher. So that's now he's died. So it's like we haven't got that. Yeah, they say that it's endangered in the UK. There's a list called on the heritage crafts called the Red List, and I'm one of the last polishers in the UK. And I just recently got Precious Metal Worker of the Year award.
How awesome is that?
So this is, I'll just show you it. That's my award. It's silver, and it weighs, well, £15 in silver.
That is
and
amazing.
That is mine.
I've never heard of anything like that over here at all.
Yeah. This is mine to keep for a year. And then they've given me like a small copy, that big, just weighs under a kilo, and that's mine to keep for the rest of my life. And it has my name.
But that one you pass on to somebody else next year.
Yeah, hand it on to somebody else. It doesn't have to be a polisher. It can be just somebody within the precious metal trade. So the last guy was a spinner. It's a really interesting job. I really like spinning. The idea of spinning is like, where you do pottery, when you get some clay and
yes,
he does this with silver. So he has a metal, maybe a nylon chuck, and he puts it on and gets a piece of silver, disc of silver, the shape, and he anneals it. Then he spins it and makes the shape.
I've seen some of that. That's awesome to watch.
And that is like two in the country. Two people left. That's it. This is why the heritage craft, which I belong to, is like trying to get these endangered crafts back. So,
and how old did you say you are?
Pardon, I'm 71.
71, and you're still polishing.
Still polishing.
That is amazing. And honestly, I know a lot of polishers here that are still doing trucks that are in their 70s and 80s. For those guys, it's because they can't afford to quit. They're stuck in that mentality. But for yourself, when you say you're doing a big job, what does big job mean to you? Like you're doing dinner plate size stuff, or what is a big job consist for you?
Normally it would be, I have done a big job was recently, which could be interesting for you, was a Bentley car. Okay. Bentley. So I did all the little knobs and everything like that. And I think this car was £2 million. And I've done 18 of those cars, the interior knobs, and they let me design a finish. But before that, the big jobs would be a bowl, maybe standing 6 foot high.
Okay.
But I'm using like more of a flexi drive type idea to polish. When I retired, I said I retired in around about 1966, around the COVID, and it was really funny because I've done 50 years then. I sat down with my wife and it was Christmas, and I said to her, 50 years done. The phone rang. Can you believe it? The phone rang. And they said to me, you can't retire. You can't retire. And I went, I've had enough. Anyway, I ended up with polishing stainless steel. I never polished stainless steel. And it was a thing called a parabolic mirror, which is like a dome. Yeah. And it was about like a wok size, like cooking wok. Yeah. And it had a hole in it. So it's the top and bottom. And there was a hole in the top. And the spinning was like, oh my God, it was like so rough. It was really, really rough. And it took me all day to do one part of the dome. Just one, so difficult. And I use in Sizal mops, like about Sizal mop. Yeah.
A lot of the Canadians use them. It's starting to get big here in the US, but Sizal to me is a very outdated technology. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I know I'm going to get a lot of people messaging me for saying this. A lot of guys are going to throw some shade at me for this, that Sizal still works and that's the application you should be using. I just feel like Sizal is such an outdated technology. There is much faster routes to get to where you want to be. That's what I mean. Sizal does work. but it's
Yeah,
very time consuming. And for the average consumer in like what we do, the average consumer, you're just adding more steps to get a little bit better finish when
yeah,
for
yeah,
you it's kind of necessary because you have to have that finish usually for what you're working on.
yeah, yeah,
But in my world, sisal is just an unnecessary step. Like you would have to cross cut to get
yeah.
your lines out, right? And then I know some guys that are still doing a light sanding after their sisal to try to get it where they want it. And I'm like, you could have just skipped the sisal step and done 2 steps of sanding and gotten to the same point without all the extra time and labor in it. But
Yeah,
then again, I know polishers that use sisal and they're super fast at it. They've been doing it for a lot of years, so it's super simple and they find a way to make it work faster. But even then, if I compare it to my process, I still feel like we're faster and we get to the same finish line to the average consumer looking at it. Now, when you start putting it underneath a microscope and stuff like that, it's a completely different world. But when you're giving it to a customer that's just going to bolt it on their truck or something like that, they don't see a lot of the things we see, right? So
that's
uh, the
right.
sisal,
Yeah.
the sisal for us is a very
When
outdated
I always
technology.
say, if I did a little video about it, and I say, well, mainly it's for what I call general polishers. So I'm a precious metal polisher. So below is a general polisher, maybe polishing stainless and bumper polishers and all that. But what was quite interesting was when I started doing this dome, that I started learning more about compounds, because when the compound for this, I would need quite an, like you say, an aggressive compound with a
Yeah, very
sisal
much
mold.
so.
Then the next stage, my normal compound, which would be like the brown bar, what we call Tripoli over here,
Tripoli.
would be
Yep.
the next shine. But then that wouldn't do anything for me. It wouldn't like shine. So I started using uh, I use Carbrax for with a thing what they call sizer, which is sort of a real cutting thing. Then I use a thing
Really
called
aggressive.
Steel Bright, which
Almost
was
like emery.
like just shines it up. But then I started polishing. When I was polishing a lot of white gold, well, a lot of white gold, I did a 2 million, 2.5 million pound gold table, a coffee table that you could sit
Holy
at, and it
cow.
was in white gold. It was worth
Jeepers, man.
in 19, I think it was 1987. It was worth 2.5 million, and there was gold on it, and I could not touch the white gold with the traditional methods. So I started polishing it with a light green compound, which I think over there, over in the USA, the equivalent could be like a ZAM. I don't know if you know about ZAM. It's for
I've heard of
jewelry
Zam.
polishing.
I don't think
Quite a
Zam's
light
around.
green colour, and it give me a good shine. And then I could just put like a rouge on it afterwards, the
Yep.
finishing, and it became great. But with
So
stainless
did you
steel,
use like for the green, what was that green a chromium oxide? Do you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and then your rouge was probably like a light red. So over here, a lot of people call the compound rouge. It's a general term for everybody, but when you said rouge, instantly I knew what you were talking about because back in the
yeah, yeah,
day, rouge was the color. It was like a lightish red. There was a few companies here in the US making it. Burns was one of the
yeah.
main
I like
companies.
Burns. I still use Burns.
So we can't Burns closed down years ago, right? You can't get Burns very much. Before they closed, I bought a couple boxes of Burns. I have maybe 6 or 8 bars left of it, and that is like a lifetime supply for me because I don't
Yeah,
do a
yeah,
lot of,
yeah.
but I use it on anything copper or brass that comes through my shop, gets Burns Red on it to finish because you cannot get a better finish than Burns Red.
That's
I
right.
swear to
It's
God.
so
Like,
amazing. People over here are trying to avoid rouge now, and so I'm basically using Menzerner products.
sure. Yep.
Like 164 would be the light blue one for
Yep.
cutting on a second stage, and then I have to sort of disperse with the no rouge. I'm jumping onto 175, like the yellow bar, or
Sure.
as a white bar as well. So M5, and so that's what I try and avoid. But the trouble is, you need to have the perfect job before you get to that stage. With
Yeah.
the rouge, if you left a little mark, you'd have a little chance of getting that
Yeah.
mark out when it burns. But no way you can remove any other marks by
Yeah.
cheating.
You know, and that brings
Cheating.
up a great point. I've said this for years. If you're getting to your color step or your finish step and you see things before you polish it, you're not ready to color or finish. Your
No,
cutting
no.
your cutting does all the heavy lifting. Your cutting does everything from getting your scratches out, your nicks and dings and all that stuff. If you're not removing it with the cut, the chances of removing it with your color are really slim because the abrasive in your colors are so light that they're not doing a lot of
Yeah.
heavy cutting and a lot of heavy lifting. And your finish, if you don't look perfect before you go to your finish is not going to make it any better.
No.
It's like that ceramic coat on your car. It just emphasizes everything. I get people all the time. They're like, "Man, my job looked pretty good when I was done with the green, but when as soon as I go to put the blue on or purple or white or whatever finish they're using, they're like, I get all these lines. I'm like, were the lines there before that? Well, yeah, there was some there before that. I thought this would get rid of it. I'm like, no, that doesn't get rid of anything. It
No,
highlights
no.
it. That's all it's doing is highlighting at the end, and it's pretty neat that it for you, it's the same way. A little while ago, when we first started having this conversation, you mentioned that you follow a lot of the big truck polishers because you can relate to a lot of the same stuff. I think that's something else we should chat about for a minute is polishing truly is an art. I don't care
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
doing jewelry or you're doing big trucks or you're doing industrial work or you're doing just your own personal work. Anybody that's polished should be able to relate to each other because we're all creating art on some level. And it's the whole reason I follow you. I think the things that you do are interesting to me because I don't have I don't have the interest to try and make a full-time gig out of doing what you're doing. I can appreciate the time and patience it takes to do those little things that you do because it's completely different from what I do. Like me, I can grab a grinder and just throw it on a wheel and I'm going to get some results out of it. Some of the stuff I see you put a little paste on, like one of those little statuettes that you're doing. You put a little
Yeah,
paste
yeah.
on, you polish a spot, you're checking it out to make sure it's accomplishing what you want it to accomplish, and then you put a little more on and you do it again. It's like I'm trying to figure out if you're developing a pattern to accomplish that piece, or if that's just your process to get that piece done and you already knew that ahead of time.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the time is. I with it say like a statue, I don't want it to be too bright. So I'm doing a lot of
Okay.
sculptural work, and if it's too bright, it just becomes too blingy. You can't see the shape. So sometimes I bring it up high, like on a rouge finish, then I knock it back. So I might use a brush. We use a brush, and a big thing in my classes is a powder which is called Vienna lime. You might call it whitening powder. It's
Yeah,
like
whitening
chalk.
powder. Yep.
Yeah, whitening powder. The funny story is, I was in 2007. I started teaching, and you sound like I've got a London accent, so like sort of. So I was in Birmingham, and they're different accent, and I'm going to Birmingham. It's halfway up the country, and I go into a shop, and I go, "Have you got any whitening powder, mate?" And he went, "Don't even know what it is. You London polishers, bloody blah." I went, "Okay, I'll come back tomorrow." So I went back tomorrow and I checked it on Google and it said that it's a bit like Vienna lime. So I went in about Vienna lime. I said, "You got Vienna lime, mate?" And he went, "Got 6 kilo." So, but
Same
Vienna
thing.
lime and whitening powder are slightly different. They're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
whitening powder is more cream color, whereas Vienna lime's more white.
So
And so
whitening powder is just it's crushed granite,
yeah,
and Vienna lime is Vienna limestone, super crushed and pulverized. That's the only
super
difference.
crushed.
But the hardness of the two stones are exactly the same.
Same,
So,
yeah.
well, I shouldn't say that. The Vienna lime's a hair softer, um, but when it's crushed up and pulverized, whitening powder, they pulverize it. I don't remember what the micron level is that they pulverize it to, but when they pulverize it, it ends up the same micron level. So they're technically not the same when
it's
they get
quite
down to that
interesting, is
level?
that because when I was talking about the hardness, and so silver's 3,
Yep.
and Vienna lime is 3, so that means it cannot cut silver. So it
Huh.
can't create, it can't remove a scratch, it can't scratch it any way, it can't remove any marks. It just,
Because it's
so I
the
use
same
it for
hardness.
cleaning, so mainly cleaning the job before I go on to the next stage. So, and it's
Huh.
great for antiques, because with the antique, you want a certain color. You don't want it to look in not bright. So an antique could be 20 years old, 50 years old. And I would know what, so I buy it, we have a hallmark. So the year that it's been stamped. So I'd look at the hallmark and go, right, that's the color of the job. So if it was like Georgian, which was like sort of say 1600 or something, you would know that it's got to be like really heavily scratched, but with a bright finish in the background. So you would like sort of make out like a butler's been polishing it. So if the antique dealer
Sure.
knew what I knew, he'd devalue it and go, no, it's been in a workshop. But we would like make sure that it looked 1610 or 1710, Queen Victoria, 1890. I would go, oh, that's a late Vic. We go early Vic, and all these sort of. So when you go into antiques, it's a different sort of level.
So just
And
by looking at that hallmark, you could tell
yeah,
what
the
kind of finish
hallmark.
it would have had during that hallmark.
Yeah, well, I've got also I've got what I've got here
Wow.
on this job here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a hallmark, and
Huh.
this is one of my pieces. What I use it on a demo with my students quite a lot, and this is really clever. This
So
is, it
is that a
looks like
silver
it's
cup?
handmade.
Is
It's
that a
like
silver cup?
yeah, silver cup,
Okay.
but
All right.
it's been electroformed. Can you believe it? Electroformed. So they make a wax thing out of it, like a wax casting, and then they
Yep.
paint it with a metal paint, and then put it into a silver vat, and then
Yep.
over 24 hours it becomes a silver cup.
It sticks to it. It's just like chrome plating almost, only in
Yeah,
a,
yeah, but
yeah,
very thick.
yeah,
And
very thick.
so
That's
they
cool.
everybody thinks that's like a handmade thing, but it's not. It's got a good weight to it. But the trouble is, if you put any like heat to electroformed, it becomes really soft to polish.
Yeah.
Goes like
It
it goes
almost becomes flimsy.
like putty.
Yeah.
So
That's wild.
yeah,
I didn't know you could actually polish that stuff. I've had a couple customers bring me some of those electrofolds. I think the one was a cup and one was like a gravy boat or something like that. And they asked me if I could polish it. I'm like, well, if it's silver, I should be able to polish it. And they're like,
should be
yeah, it's
able to
for
do
sure
it.
silver. And I'm like, all right. I didn't know that by looking at the hallmark you could tell the finish. So I just polished it out. And the one cup that I did, the customer was like, "Oh my God, this is like the brightest cup I've ever seen." I'm like, "Well, I only know to make it shiny. Like that's it."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the guy that brought me the gravy boat, he's like, "Oh man," he's like, "I think you might have ruined it." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, it wasn't this shiny from new." He goes, "It had like this patinaed areas on it that gave it coloration." I'm like, "I'm sorry, you brought it to me and asked me if I could shine it. I shined it. Like I don't know nothing about putting patinaed colors on." And he ended up finding an antique polisher in another
yeah,
state that
yeah,
that guy ended up calling me and asking me what I finished it with, and I explained to him I used burns to finish, and
yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
"Oh,
To finish it
perfect."
off.
He goes, "Well, then I can just put a patina back on those areas that need the patina on. I don't even need to refinish it then." I was like, "Awesome." So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
ended up being a really cheap fix. And the guy brought it back to me after and showed it to me. And he's like, "This is what it was supposed to look like." I was like, "Man, I'd had never known how to do that because that is so
No.
far out of my realm." But it let me know for the future that if I ever got another piece in like that again, to just say no because I wasn't going to be able to get them what they wanted. And I did have a couple people bring me like stainless silver or the silverware sets. And I've polished a few of them over the years, but those people were just looking for shiny. They weren't looking for anything fancy, which was pretty simple. They weren't looking for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
patina back on the leafing and stuff like that. So that stuff was simple. I mean, relatively simple. It's not simple by any sense of the term because it's very tedious and time consuming, but um yeah, that's pretty
What was
cool.
quite interesting with you when you were saying about the truck and me doing my stuff is that when I maybe done a coffee pot, like a teapot, coffee pots, you'd polish them, you'd be great. But then when I transferred into 2003, I started to polish jewelry, completely different. And because they
Yeah.
only had like a little thing to look at, they used a magnifying glass and they would like
Yeah.
look at it and they would go, there's a fault. They were looking for a fault. They'd even photograph it and then put it onto a 50-inch screen on the TV and then show you all the marks like a Grand Canyon, it's like, and I
Yeah.
was always interested that how far with my polishing, okay, I go up to about the Burns level, but if you put it on a microscope, it could still look like a Grand Canyon if you went
Yeah.
wide enough, you know.
Yep.
So whereas you with your trucks, okay, it's not as detailed as what I'm doing, but it's pleasing to the eye, which is everybody loves shiny
Yep.
objects.
So that's
So
the thing is, in this world, I call them shiny pits. Shiny
yeah,
pits are acceptable for probably 90% of my customers. And then I get into some of my show quality stuff that we do for some of the truck shows that we attend, and those ones are the next level. I've polished some parts that have gone to museums, and um, I met a metallurgist. I was polishing at a place. I want to say this was probably 15 years ago. I was polishing at a place that had on-staff metallurgist, and they did their own trucking deliveries, and they wanted their truck polished, and their polishers in-house couldn't polish trucks. They they understood the art of polishing and how to do it, but they couldn't figure out how to physically do it when it wasn't at a stand-up lathe, right? They couldn't figure out how to use the grinders. They couldn't understand the difference in pressure between holding a grinder versus holding the part. And they had hired me in to do that. And while I was doing it, the metallurgist heard my grinder running, and he come out. He's like, "What are you doing out here? That's so loud." I'm like, "Well, I'm polishing the metal on this truck." He's like, "What do you mean polishing the metal on the truck?" I'm like, "Well, I'm polishing all the metal on the truck." And he goes, "I'd like to talk with you if you've got some time today. I stay late every day. I'm one of the last ones here every day. I got some questions. I want to know why our guys in the shop can't do what you do. I want to know if there's a difference in pressure and all kinds of stuff." I said, "Why would you want to know that?" He's like, "Well, I'm a metallurgist and I'm intrigued by it." I said, "Well, then I've got some questions for you. I want to put acid on a piece of aluminum. I want to put acid on a piece of copper and stainless, and I want to see what they look like underneath the microscope." He's like, "You help me, I'll help you." I was like, "Okay, cool." So him and I spent the better part of probably 5 hours that night after I got done polishing the truck, just seeing different things. And I took a piece, I sprayed it with acid, I cut it with a orange airway with some Tripoli, and I looked at it underneath the microscope. What does it look like when it's smoothed out from that? And then I put the green on top of it to see if the green would pull the orange, it pull the Tripoli out of the pores. And then we looked at that. And then we put white over the top of the green, and then blue over the top, and then purple over the top to see what it did. And when you look at it underneath the microscope and you look at brown was like, for example, like Mount Everest, right? The peaks and valleys were super high, super low. And then you get down to the green, and the green's like your average hill at your house outside. You're going to drive up and down a local hill. And then you get to the white and the blue, and the white and the blue is like a speed bump compared to Mount Everest. It was like, holy cow, is that a difference between brown to green to
yeah,
white?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was such a it really gave me a lot of great information moving forward as I became a better polisher. Um, allegedly, I'll say allegedly a better polisher. But it gave me a lot of helpful insight into what was happening behind the scenes while I was polishing, right? And then I also used different buffs to see like if a stitched buff created a better finish, or if airway buff was getting the finish done. And then we timed things out to see how long they got. And that guy and I hit it off. We became very close personal friends. On the metallurgical side, we barely ever talk families or hang out. We only call each other when we've got metallurgy questions. But I had a piece that we had done for Don Wood's show truck. Anybody that listens to this in the US knows Don Wood's show truck. It's the blue and green one that I do all the time. Um, he has these stainless plates in random positions to accentuate things. They're kind of like the jewelry on his semi. And he had brought them to me, and I said, "What's the budget?" He goes, "Evan, I just want them to be the nicest thing. I want you to be proud of them. You do what you got to do. We'll figure the price out later." I'm like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Yep, I want them to be great." So I called my buddy up and I said, "I want to try something new, and I want you to come in and grade it because in the A scale, I don't think I didn't at the time think that you could grade in the A scale using a buffer, using a machine. Like I thought to get into the A level mirrors, you had to do it all by hand, right?
Yes.
Um, with the liquids. And I polished this piece out and I got done that night and I was like, man, I've got like 6 hours tied up in a plate that was no bigger than a serving plate, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I called my buddy up. I said, "Hey, I know it's late. Can you come down here and grade a piece for me?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll grab my gun and I'll bring it down." So he brought his grading gun and he graded it and he looks at me, he's like, "You learned how to hand polish?" I'm like, "No, that's off a machine." He's like, "No way." He goes, "I thought we decided that you couldn't polish to a level mirror with a machine." I was like, "I didn't think you could either, but I was kind of playing around with some new things." When I got to my white buff level, I was using a super soft compound in my white and I was soaking the part in isopropyl alcohol. The isopropyl alcohol was not only stripping the wax off while I was polishing, but it was also keeping it cool enough that the compound wasn't building too much heat, that it was keeping the friction from creating scratches on the stainless. So it was a perfectly graded mirror. It wasn't a high level A, but it was still a low level A, which I didn't think was possible with the machine.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the mixture of compound and the isopropyl alcohol that did it. I don't know if it was I was 12 hours in and super tired and wasn't putting the same pressure on that I normally put in. Um, but at the same time, I polished an A grade mirror for something that as soon as he drives it on the road, it's going to catch some stone chips and it's no longer going to be an A graded mirror.
No,
It
no.
was beyond what was reasonable for that application. But at the same time, I wanted to be able to say I could do it. And then I
Yeah.
replicated it on all the rest of the pieces for him. I figured out a faster way to get there by that time. Um, but yeah, when he rolled into the Louisville truck show that year, he had A graded mirrors on his truck that he had covered to make sure they didn't get wrecked on the way there. But
Oh,
as soon as
well.
we wiped them with microfiber, they put hairline scratches in them because they were too perfect, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I never thought about that. We should have just used whitening powder to wipe them
Yeah.
because stainless is actually harder than whitening powder. So
Yeah.
if we'd used that instead of just straight microfiber and glass cleaner, we probably wouldn't have scratched them.
They
Um,
wouldn't
and
know.
it probably would have cleaned them just the same if we had sprayed them with
Yeah. Yeah,
alcohol
we just
and
cleaned it.
wiped them
What's
with the
quite
whiting
quite
powder.
interesting is where you were saying about pressures. Obviously, my machines are standalone with a spindle. So
Yep.
every single student, we call it "I'm giving you the gift." So what I do, I use their hands like a puppet. So I hold their hands. I'll give them the 30 seconds. Give them the pressure. Do that, and then they know what the pressure. Then what we do the compound. So I hold their hands, put the compound on the mop, that quick. So
Yep.
that would normally they'll be going with a compound, putting it on, and then the mop would be like coated in compound and then be
Yeah.
all sort of horrible and dirty. And
Yep.
so I just go poof, just a little quick wipe. I know it's not a truck, so it's not going to have to last, but they have to load up maybe every couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But it's better to do that than just like keep on giving it all this, and then you end up with a really horrible mop. So that's what we always do. I always go, I mean, I've got 7 people, maybe in my class, and then I go, right, you're the one, first one, grab your hands, usually like 30 seconds. Then I move on to the next one and I do the whole 7. And then I do a rotation and I start. This will take the first part of the class, might take, it takes to 3 o'clock. So you start at 10, I do a bit of spiel, and then we have a little break at 1 o'clock. But by 3 o'clock, they all know how to get to the Burns Rouge finish.
Wow.
Everybody. So then we start learning about textures, because not all jewelry is wanting to be shiny, you know. So I teach them about satin finishes. We do another one which is called frosting finishes, like spiky wheels, and so we go through that, and that all finishes by maybe 4 o'clock. They all go home. Then the next day they're all so excited. Then they're starting on their own jewelry. And what is quite interesting is, because I taught 3 stages. So I go 1 stage, cutting, 2 stage, shine, 3rd stage, super shine. And that's how I teach. It's a lot more than that, but for the students at the very beginning, is enough to grasp. And they go, oh, we get brain ache. I burn their brain with so much information that I'm so passionate about what I do. They go, oh, I just got brain ache from what you go on about. You know, I give them charts with all the different compounds, of pictures, as posters. There's a download booklet. They get sent after the course. But it's like, honestly, I teach in the Netherlands, which is in Holland, yeah?
Yep.
If they say I'm coming, 30 minutes, 24 places are gone. 24 places are gone. And
they'll fill it that
that's
fast.
been happening for 13 years.
So how long have you been training? 13
months.
years?
Just couldn't cope.
How many years have you been training?
I've been training since 2007. I've been teaching.
17 years now.
Yeah.
So
But I've been polishing for 55 years. So what happened was, when in 2003, I stopped working for the Crown Jewellers because it was going smaller, the trade was going smaller. So, and I was doing big things. So they said, we haven't got room for all the stuff that you're polishing. Right, I did a statue, you know, it's called the Thinker. It's like a sculpture. One like as big as me. I'm only 5'3", big as me, and I'll polish one of them. So the workshops were not big enough for what I do. So anyway, they phased it all out, and then I went to work for a guy. He's called Theo Fennell. Theo Fennell was like, he's a celebrity jeweler. So I ended up working for celebrities, but working with Theo, we sort of worked together with the models, like, and looking at them, like darking a bit, getting a bit of shadow. So we worked together like that, and I learned quite a lot. And I worked for him for 18 years, but I was freelance. So I would be called in, and he would say, you put me first all day. So give me a workshop. It'll be rent free, because over here, you could be renting a bench, you know, rent a bench. It's like a hairdresser, like a barber. You rent your chair for cutting your hair. It's polishing, and silversmithing and jewellers are renting a bench. So they go in and they rent a bench and they do the job. So Theo Fennell, he gave me a workshop rent free. He wanted me because I was the Queen's polisher. I worked for the Queen. So he gave me a workshop, and then so I worked for him, and then basically he gave me a phone number. I got a Chelsea address in London. It's like posh, like upmarket address. So we did that, and then but anyway, he didn't have enough work for me, so I maybe worked for him for about 3 days in a week, and I was getting bored, so I still wanted to do other stuff. So somebody said to me, there's a university in Birmingham, which is in England, in the Midlands, they have we call a summer school. So when the university shut down, they bring experts in like me in the summer. So we would teach the students who want to know more apart from the normal curriculum, to get people like experts. So be me, there'll be an engraver, there might be a person who puts stones in, and we'd all do up. So anyway, I'll go, and basically the story goes that I would not see anybody for a year, and I would come out of my workshop and meet the public. And it was basically true. So they were coming from Australia and Ireland and all sorts. So I started doing that. And then people started asking me to do 16-year-olds as well. It's like, because 16-year-olds didn't really want to, they weren't sort of brainy, but they wanted to do something more artistic. So I started teaching that, but they were so always messing around and all that. Anyway, what happened was,
And you can't mess around when you're standing at a lathe like that. That machine wants to kill you.
I had a friend who burnt his hand, who, was trying to stop that machine while it was still going around, and he just blistered his hand up. But anyway, I was when I started teaching these young kids, I had a friend from Holland and Netherlands, and he said to me, "You're so passionate about what you do. We want you to come to the Netherlands." And I go, "Oh, I'm not bothered. I've got a lot of gear to carry. I've got like maybe £50 worth in weight of tools that I carry on a plane." And so I did go, and then I went on stage. It gave me a stage. It gave me like what I call a Madonna mic, and I got a big PowerPoint. And there's 80 craftsmen, 80 goldsmiths in the audience, 80.
Oh.
And there's not 80 here, there's not 80 in England. So anyway, got me on stage, and I was like I am now, and I got them all going, they're all clapping and everything. Anyway, I come back home, and then he said, "Steve," he says, "we want to start an academy because of you." And I went, "Oh, we want you to cut the ribbon." What? So every 3 months I was going to a place called Den Bosch, and I did a 3-day course. So I'd land the day before, then I would teach, and then I would just go, and then I'll come back in maybe a couple of months later and do it. And then one time he said, "I've got a guy here, he's actually polished the crown for their queen." And it was like, she was like really cool. Anyway, I was polishing for, do you know Princess Diana? Have you heard of Princess Diana?
Yeah, everybody here's heard of Princess Diana.
I when she died, I did her coffin, all the metal for her coffin.
Beautiful work on that thing.
The silver and everything. She's still got a piece of silver that I polished, which will be with her in the ground, which is amazing.
Really?
So it's like, that's really heart-wrenching, really. But so I got to polish for high-end sort of people, Ozzy Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. So I was another one of the guys that I never met him, but I used to polish his jewelry for him, and Elton John and all that. And it's quite interesting that they're all these celebrities are all sort of friends. So Ozzy's wife came in and she said, "Oh, I really want these cufflinks, but they're in yellow gold." And they go, "Well, Elton only has white. He only ever wears white metal, doesn't wear any yellow metal." So I said, "Steve, make it white." So I rhodium plated it. So I like rhodium plate the cufflinks for, because basically Elton would only wear them once, and then he would go on and move something else. So it's interesting, Andrew Lloyd Webber. He's like he wrote Cats. He's a I've met him, and he came in, and he's got something for another person, another celebrity. He wants a piece of jewelry which has already been made, and he just gives it to me to sort out. Lewis Hamilton, his girlfriend, she came in to meet me. She wanted something for him. Another one was Rolling Stones, Ronnie Wood. So
Lewis Hamilton's one of my all-time favorite Formula One drivers. He's gotten so much into the politics now. It's hard to. I don't like when people use their fame to push politics.
No.
So I've kind of fallen off a little bit with him lately, but honestly, Lewis is he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest Formula One drivers, and he's very
Yeah,
eccentric in
yeah,
that
yeah.
department too. So I could imagine some of the stuff you've done for him has been pretty cool.
It's really funny. I was
Um,
on a cruise ship, and I met this guy called Michael Goddard. Michael Goddard is an artist in America,
yeah, that
and
name sounds really familiar.
he at the time he's in Vegas. He's got long hair and he's got tattoos, and he looks like a biker. But he's not like that anymore. But anyway, I met him on a cruise ship, and he had an Ozzy Osbourne painting, and he had the ring. He had like a Union Jack ring, and he goes, "Who made that?" And he used to call me Goldsmith. I'll pass him. He go, "Hey, Goldsmith, come over here." And I'd be sitting with him, and there'd be like another guy who's a sculptor, another guy who does paintings from the Hollywood signs. He'd had redid all those, and I met them people. And my wife was on this cruise ship, and she goes, "I'm just going back to my cabin because you lot are just getting on like a house on fire." It's so funny.
It
And
sounds
now
like
he's
your
got
wife and my wife would get
Michael
along
Goddard. He's
great.
got a new wife, and she's just like the old wife, very glamorous, and she's very
Sure.
friendly actually. And on Instagram, she follows you, and she will talk to you as well,
Really?
which was quite good because I sort of just met Michael, and he's basically paid to speak to me. But I did buy some. Before I met him, I already had some of his paintings in my house. So
Really?
because he does like strawberries, he does olives dancing and all that. It's very sort of Vegas type stuff. So when you go on a cruise ship, they're always trying to sell you stuff. But it was quite good that I had this interaction with him, and then it's gone now, But I've got pictures with him. He's like a real Michael Goddard is a really
I'm gonna have to
cool
look him
guy.
up. That
Look him
name
up.
sounds
Look him
really
up.
familiar. But it is
So
funny how those circles are really tight because I got in with one of our local, well, I shouldn't say local celebrities. He's a big time celebrity out of California, but he has a local shop to me. And you'd never know because the shop out here is has no sign on the front door, nothing. But the only thing they work on is his personal supply. Um, and I got in touch with he had gotten in touch with me through his agent, and after that, once we had polished for him, a couple other people that are in that same social circle with him were like, "Who polished those parts for you? Because we want ours to look like that." And he's like, "I don't want to tell you because I don't want to lose my guy." And
yeah,
then I ended up getting to meet some of those people at SEMA, and I was hanging out with them, and the other guy, one of his buddies, had seen me hanging out with him, and he come walking up to me after I walked away. He's like, "Are you?" He flipped my name tag over, and he's like, "Metal polishing. Are you the guy that polishes for him?" And I'm like, "I legally can't talk about it, so maybe, maybe not." And he's like, "Good, you're the guy I need to talk to." He goes, "I got a bunch of stuff I need you to do, and I need you to do it without telling him because I want him to see that my stuff now looks like his, and I want to be able to rub it in that I found a polisher." And I'm not going to tell him it's you because I want him to wonder who's doing it. So can you do mine a little better? I'm like, I can do it to the best of my ability, and that's all I can do for you. It wasn't like I could do it better for you for this price or better for him for this price. At the time, it was just the best I could do. And those two, they were funny. They fought back and forth, and I hung out with both of
yeah,
them at SEMA a number of different times, and they introduced me to other people that were friends that I've never done work for, but I've got to take pictures with some pretty cool celebrities over the years that I'll probably never do work for, and they'll probably never really know who I am. I'll never really know who they are, but I've gotten to meet them over the years just through the connection of those guys. It was pretty neat.
yeah. It's the not well. I have to do a lot of forms with non-disclosure agreements, so I'm
Me
not
too.
really allowed to say what I do. And so now, basically, I'm getting to the end of those non-disclosure agreements because they only last. They say till I die, but on the real, they're really like maybe 5 to 7 years old.
Yeah,
So one of the jobs that I did after I did those parabolic mirrors during COVID, actually, I got a phone call. It's a really cool story. Is that basically I got a phone call from the head engraver of the Royal Mint. The Royal Mint is the people in charge of our coinage in England,
sure.
and there were had this old engraver. It's called William Wyon, and they wanted to resurrect the design of what he used to do. So they would like use modern methods to improve it, but they still wanted it mechanically polished on a machine. They didn't want it like as when they stamp normally, it like a coin is bright,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
bright. Whereas with these coins,
because the stamp itself is polished smooth,
yeah,
correct?
its stamp is bright. So when it goes like that, it comes out bright. Whereas these things are actually bigger than this. They're twice the size of that. And
Okay.
they were in gold. Anyway, so I got a phone call and they said to me, will you come down to the Royal Mint? And it's quite a drive. So I caught a train and it's in the other side of England in near Cardiff. And he showed me this brass coin, which weighed 5 kilo. Completely so 5 kilo, 10, maybe 12 pounds to you.
I was gonna say it's pretty heavy for a coin.
Can you pick it up? Can you pick up this metal? And I went, yeah, I can pick it up. But he said, we're never going to talk about the design, ever. We're never going to use the name of it on an email. When you ring each other, nothing. It's no text. Never, ever know about the design of this coin that you're going to do. So they come to my place, my workshop, and they checked it all out for security. And where I used to live, I had electric gates, and they used to come in, put your car on the drive. My workshop's there, opened it all up. I have security, cameras, everything. They come around and check it. And anyway, this piece, well, it's hard for you to value, but it's like at 1 kilo weigh at the time was £69,000. So it was like, and I was polishing 5 kilo of gold, and it had a design on it. So I tried one which was 1 kilo, little copy, to see how good I was. And so they said, sent it back. Yeah, it's okay. You're good enough to do this. So then we sent the 5 kilo coin, which is the one which is on YouTube, and it's called Una and the Lion by the Royal Mint. And I'm in that video. So when they come into my workshop, this coin takes 3 days to polish. They've only got 4 hours to make a film, like this little movie. They've got smoke machines. There's a guy underneath my bench, and he's the other side facing me with a camera. I've got another guy here with a smoke machine doing this, and he's like, no, I want you to do this. I want you to start looking at your tools and do this. Like, it's amazing. It's like the video is maybe two minutes long. I'm in about 30 seconds. It's like amazing. Anyway, they said, we want you to get a finish on this coin within 4 hours, and we're gone. Unbelievable. So you can only do like a little bit of it. Anyway, I did it. They went off after 4 hours. They made this like amazing film. And now they've gone off and the coin's gone. And I hear nothing. I don't hear anything. Not a good job. Nothing. You don't hear nothing.
Yeah.
Even the bill would take a couple of months to pay. They take 2 months to pay you. And so it's a job. And it went on. Anyway, one of my friends said to me, they rang me, they said, your hands are in the newspaper. I went, well, no. My hands can't be in the newspaper. They said, you're definitely your hands. We know that it's your hands and it's your machine that you use. And you're in the newspaper on the front. It's the most beautiful coin in the world, and the Royal Mint have made it, and you were part of it. And I went, well, I don't know nothing about it. And my name's never been mentioned, ever.
Wow.
And so, which is really interesting, right? The way they make the coin, like a record, the lines, the turning lines. So in this coin, they had those lines in gold, and I had to remove those lines. So I blend them in. I use a thing called a water of air stone. It's like a slate, and you do it all by hand with water, and you blend it all in. Anyway, do that. Anyway, went away, and it's become like an amazing coin. Then they ring me up and say to me, will you do a James Bond coin? James Bond coin. So I went,
yes, the
of
answer is
course.
always yes.
So there was a DB7 or whatever coming out of the coin, and we want you to make it come out more. We want you to poof like that. And so, okay. They said, the only trouble, Steve, is that the coin you did before, you lost 15 grams of gold. And I went, yeah, well, you give it to me so rough. Of course I lost 15 grams of gold. But now today's value at 15 grams of gold would be like £1,500.
I was going to say, that's expensive. They could have swept it up off the floor and
loss.
melted it back together again, right?
It's just gone. It's gone. Yeah. So anyway, so I said, if you give me the coins better from now on, will be good. So I polished this coin, the 7 kilo one, and then I started doing 3 kilos. I did 5 kilos. Anyway, I've polished now 40 kilos of pure gold for the Royal Mint. And what I used to do before the coin would be polished, I'd weigh it, because it must be a value. If it's a £5,000 coin, it has to weigh above 5 kilo. That's the law. So, and if I bring it down, it's been devalued. So anyway, I did that. Anyway, at the end of all the jobs, once I've weighed them and everything, I lose 2 grams, 2 grams of gold on a coin. So they've got them really, really good for me before I polished them. Sure. They never left them rough. They left them nice and smooth. That meant they had kept their gold, and they actually got a nicer job, because it didn't have those deep lines, you know.
So they altered their process to make it better for you to get your process accomplished. Wow.
Yeah. And then they had one time
awesome.
they had like a hole. One hole was near the £5,000, and I just said, "Oh, you've got to drill it. You got to plug it with gold, and then we can blend it in." And they said, "We can't do that. We can't do what you do." I said, "But I'm a polisher. I'm not a person who has a laser machine and put a piece of wire in. I don't do that. But what I can do, I can sort of bring the metal down to a level below the hole.
Yep.
And then blend it sort of in, and it come out reasonably perfect, you know." So I've got pictures of it. It's like really interesting from what it was to what it is now. And then they use that one maybe in their museum, because they didn't want to give it to the customer, because it's got to be perfect for a customer. So they use that one. And what's interesting is, with the gold from the Royal Mint, the coins have no hallmark, because these coins that we do for them are tax-free. So if they go up with the value in a coin, so the value could be 50,000, then it goes up to 100,000. Okay, it's made 50,000. It's tax-free. It's a bit of a dodge. Yeah, it's a bit of a dodge, but amongst the rich people who can afford all this money,
they can afford to buy the gold, right?
They can buy the gold.
Wow.
So, and then people obviously, they can buy a gold sovereign, and they might melt it down, and it would mostly work out better to make the jewelry with than having the coin. You know, it's that value, the balance of the jewelry, putting a stone in, because normally with a piece of jewelry, it's the stone that's got the value.
Right.
You know, I've done. So that's interesting. When I started, I did that. Then I went on to mobile phones. Can you believe it? A mobile phone which was made of platinum. And I did another one. I did a James Bond mobile phone which was bulletproof. And you think, well, how on earth can you polish something that's bulletproof?
Yeah.
These things are like, I started doing like, it was like a bit like a staple at the beginning to get the main surface, because these things are created by a computer, like 3D created, and they've got all the build lines in them. So you need to get all those lines out. And I'll never forget, I did the frame of a phone, and then they went, it'd be about 70 quid. It wasn't a lot of money. It was a couple of hours work, you know. And then they gave me what? They gave me 100 of them, 100 phones to polish.
I always thought
And
it'd
then
be
what
interesting
happened
to
was,
polish a phone, but I was always worried about getting it too hot inside and wrecking the
yeah,
internals.
well, they take them all. You see, in this company, they can take them all apart.
Oh, okay.
And the biggest thing for us is about static. You know, the
Oh, yeah.
static that we create
Yep.
can burn or fry all the stuff in the phone.
Yeah.
So even we do watches. I teach people how to make polish a watch, which is like really high level,
Yep.
and you've got to have them all apart. Never. I used to polish these watches when they're all together, but it is the heats and everything, and the watches are worth so much money. It's
Yeah.
like, no, don't
Better
even
off just pulling them apart.
pulling them apart and doing them all separate.
Yep.
And I've taught people to do watches that are now better than me at doing watches. So when somebody says to me, "Will you do a watch?" I go, "No, use my friend Simon. You know, he's a really good watchmaker. Just get him, and I'll give him the contact, and I'll just pass the job on. I've got plenty enough to be doing
Yeah.
already. You know,
You know
although I'm
what's
not
funny?
like you full
You know what's
time.
funny is that you train and you're doing the same thing. I
Yeah,
train as well. I have a 2 day advanced course and I have a 3 day beginner course. And I pass work on to a lot of polishers that I've trained. One, I don't want to travel a lot anymore. It's too expensive for me to travel. And I've trained a lot of people that have become really good polishers that I know I could pass a customer along to, let's say Casey Hauser or some of my other really close polishing buddies, William Wright. I could pass along somebody that I need a polish job done to those guys because they're in that area. And I'm sure you get a lot of the same thing I get. With training comes a lot of hate because this is an art form. And a lot of people don't like that we're teaching other people how to take work away. But I think you see it a lot of the same way I do, that there is so much work to be had for everyone. You can't you can't polish enough stuff to take care of everybody. You will
no,
never run out of work so long as you have the drive to want to work and to go find it if you need it. Because there is no shortage of work anywhere. The only people I know that aren't working are the ones that aren't going out looking for it or aren't trying very hard.
yeah, yeah,
So your training
yeah.
course, is
I
it,
get
you said
I
three
get phone
days?
calls and I get emails. I've got this done, and it's like been done by another polisher. He's not good enough. We want you to do it. I go, well, look, the idea of retiring is to move over for the younger generation so they can
Yep.
pay their mortgages and carry on with their families. Where I've done all that, and I'm trying to help the younger generation to continue. So I've got somebody whose dad is just maybe a little bit younger than me. His daughter is a polisher
Sure.
and she polishes jewelry. And so now, but what's quite funny, you give them the link and you never know what happens after that. You'd only ever hear if something went wrong. If they go quiet on you, you go, well, they're all happy. Nobody ever said thank you, but I've heard no repercussions. So I'm happy about that, you know.
See, for me with the
It's
truck
quite
shows, I
funny.
get to see a
I
lot of these
remember
people.
I'd moved to where I live now, and there were some credit cards, and they were gold credit cards, and I went, no, 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 I don't want to do them. I said, there's people in London, they need to pay their mortgage. They like, no, no, I'll give you a contact. They go, no, we want you. We want you to say that you did it. And I go, no, we said we'll even get a taxi, cab, come down to where you live. We'll take you to London. I go, I'm not interested. I've actually retired from that sort of work. If
Sure.
they give me 24 credit cards, I don't want to do them. Okay, now they would go, well, what about the waste gold? The waste in the gold that you're polishing, you could collect mostly more money from doing that than actually what you're going to get paid for the job. But I do pass it on. But I've got a really interesting one at the moment. Is what I spoke about it maybe a couple of nights ago. That with a heritage craft, who are trying to look after the endangered crafts. So
Yeah.
when I go to these classes, I have say 7 students, and one of the girls in this class who I taught last year, she thought, well, I've got an opportunity here. I can polish sports trophies, football,
Oh yeah.
rugby, all that. And she knew a lot of people with all these trophies. So she wanted to learn to do more. Anyway, so she applied for a bursary with the Heritage Crafts, and she won 8 days with me. So she comes to my workshop, spends a couple of days, and then I teach her a certain bit, and then I give her homework, and she's got a machine at home, and so she goes off and does that, and then she'll come back maybe a month later with the stuff, and we learn a bit more. So now what's happened, which is really cool, is that we're going to make a documentary. So not between me and her. It's like what they want to do. They feel that the skills are gone in this country, so they want me to leave something like a legacy in a documentary before I die. So basically, Freya's coming in. We're going to make this documentary of how to polish a piece of metal, just a piece of metal. It's a 2" by 6" metal, piece of gilded metal, bit like copper, brass. And we're going to do this in a documentary. And I'm going to teach Freya how to do it for the camera. So then they'll be able to log on to the Heritage Crafts website and then find it out a bit like YouTube, you would do it. But this is like, presumably they say the best polisher in the world is teaching in this documentary, teaching Freya. So then obviously for next year, I'll be doing another person who's one of 8 days to spend with me as well
How crazy is that?
until I've got no more time to give. So, and we got on like a house of fires, all this thing about women not doing polishing, but because before, maybe maybe in the 80s, there was no women doing anything. It's interesting, there was no women silversmiths, but now there are women silversmiths. And
I see you training a lot of them.
yeah, a lot more women. I was on a course in a university. I had 26 students in a class, and there were 23 women.
That's wild.
So I've been to Mexico. I was over in Mexico last year, and I had 14 students over there. What? And I did an online class as well, which was like, and they said to it's called Hard to Find Tutors. So basically, they've got me, then they've got a sensei. So from Japan, he's teaching another skill, and then I did in person for 4 days. But with Mexico, they have the siesta, which I never really got around. It's like a siesta. So on my normal day is we start at 7 o'clock in the morning, could work to 6 o'clock at night with half an hour break.
Yeah.
But with them, they've got a siesta of like 2 hours, and then they carry on working at maybe 2:30, and then we would like work to 7:30, and you not get away to 8 o'clock. Then you go for a meal.
Yeah.
You don't get to bed till 11 o'clock, and then suddenly you're in the workshop again, teaching these 14 students, But some of them were like polishers that were doing like Formula One cars and all that in my class. So it was a really cool thing to do, I really enjoyed that. So then before that, I was in Sweden. And in Sweden, they're very eco. So whereas over here, we just melt the gold down and make something else out of it. Whereas with them, they would like I taught some goldsmiths how to get a bracelet that's 80 years old and make it look new. For then they could resell it, like a Tiffany bracelet would be resold at cheaper than a Tiffany bracelet would be, but at a bargain price. And so I did that, then I'm in Mexico, then I did the Netherlands, and now I'm back in England. So it's like, and I'm meant to be retired. It takes me about 3 days to get over what I've done, and then I'll carry on again. So I'm back. I'm off next week for 3 days, and I arrive, teach, come home on Friday night, have a couple of days off, and then I think, yeah, and then I'm going to Wales, so I'll go into Wales at the top of Wales, is like Cardiff is a bit, and then we've got Carnarvon, and I've got, I don't know, maybe about, I could have at least 8 students there. And what happens? I bring all the machines with me. So they have one machine in the workshop, and I've got this company in Turkey. They're called Balkan, and they make all the machines for everybody. And
Yep.
basically, they've given me a machine. They give me a machine to polish, which is really, really quiet. So, because I have ringing in my ears
Oh, my ears
from the
ring all
polishing,
day, every day.
yeah, all the time. Whereas this machine is quiet and never gets hot. It's something amazing. So I've done that. Anyway, I had one. Then they give me another machine. Then they give me a flexi drive, and I'll take them on my courses. Then I've got other companies that might supply me with tools. Then I'll take the tools with me, and then I'll give them to the students. And then obviously, you give them a tool to a student, they want to know where you buy it from. Then they've got a
Yeah.
customer for life.
Yep, that's
So
exactly it. But it's funny you say that is even here in the US, 15 years ago, maybe 18 years ago. 'Cause I've been doing this for I think it's 28 years this year. I started in 98, so 28 years for myself. Um, the art of polishing 18 years ago was non-existent. There was very few, I knew maybe it was because of social media, I didn't know as many people. But there really wasn't a whole lot of polishers out there, and a lot of the older guys in the industry, a lot of the guys that should have been retiring or getting close to retiring, none of them wanted to teach anybody anything. They wanted to die with their secrets. And
yeah, yeah.
that was when YouTube was just starting to get big. So I started searching YouTube, and I could only find really two polishers on YouTube at that time. And neither one of them were really teaching anything. They were just
No,
literally
no.
showing you what they did, and you had to figure it out yourself because they were using it as a marketing tool to draw in more customers. They weren't using it as a teaching tool to bring in more polishers to the industry. And I've deleted some of my earlier videos because I don't want people to get hurt because they weren't good.
Yeah, yeah.
I still have those videos. I still think like maybe I should have left them up there so people could see the way I was doing it wrong. But at the same time, I looked at it like most people aren't going to look at it like this isn't what you should do. They're going to look at it and go, oh, I'm going to try that. And then I don't want somebody to hurt themselves. So I took down a bunch of
No,
my
no.
earlier videos. But honestly, when I started putting out videos, it was just because I didn't want to see the art of polishing die and the fact that I knew I couldn't polish everybody. Even if I got as big and as famous as I could have ever gotten, I knew I wasn't going to be able to polish for everybody. And over the years now, I think my YouTube channel, I think my oldest video that I had when I started was 2004 or 2008, something around in there. Um, from then until now, I mean, I get people commenting all the time, like, I'm, you're the reason why I am in the business of polishing is because I was just doing it on the weekends. I wasn't very good. I was decent. I started watching your videos. I got better and decided to make it a full-time gig. And to me, that's awesome. Like I get to you don't get to see a lot of your clients again in the future. Whereas me with the truck shows, a lot of those people end up polishing a show truck at some point, or they go
Yeah,
to a
yeah.
truck show to go support their customers. So I travel to a lot of the truck shows. I now am a part of orchestrating and running a lot of the truck shows. So I get to see a lot of the people that I've trained. I was trying to calculate it out. I have the number here on my computer. I'm officially over 300 polishers I've trained in the
Wow,
in
yeah.
the in the years I've been doing it. I average 20 to 40 a year. I've gotten to fly to some pretty cool places myself. I went to Quebec City, up in Canada. That whole entire crew only spoke French. I don't speak any French, so I had to have a
No,
translator the
no.
whole time. Still managed to still managed to get them trained and got them polishing better than they were when I got there. I got flown into Tijuana, Mexico, I got to go train some industrial polishers down there one time. Um, the NDA thing. I've also signed some big NDAs with some companies. There was um, one celebrity that I had gone and done some work for that NDA is a lifetime NDA. So I can feel your pain there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll never be able to talk about it. When I got to the guy's shop, they had a Faraday box, which is a black steel box that you
Oh
had to
yeah.
put
Put your phone
all
in
your
and
all your electronics
yeah.
in it. And his personal security guard sat there and got dirty with me the 3 days I was doing this project. He literally was right over my shoulder, making sure like I couldn't even have earbuds, nothing. They played
No,
music in the
no.
shop for me because I wasn't allowed to have any of that in case I was recording something. They wanted me every day to make sure I didn't have any um, mini cameras or any of that stuff on
Yeah,
me, which
yeah.
was weird to me. Like I was like, I don't need to tell anybody I did this, and they're like, no, when you're done with it, you're gonna want to tell people you did it. And I got done with it, and I was like, man, I kind of felt bad. I can never tell anybody that that's me that did that. And when I see people, much like your coin story, when I see people talking about this project, um, I'm like, man, I want to be able to say, you know, that was me because I'll see people
Yeah,
comment on the
yeah.
photos when they post it up and they're like, man, whoever polished that thing did a good job. I'm like, that was me, but I can't say
You
anything
can't
about it.
say it, no.
And
No.
now there's some projects that are coming out that I see other polishers doing and they're like, I'm the first that's ever done that. And I'm like, well, I did one 8, 10 years ago already. So like, you may not have seen it and you may think you're the first one to have ever done it, but I did one 10 years ago. Like
Yeah, yeah.
but nobody will
I
ever talk
did
about it because most of those guys don't see it.
I,
Now the industry is
I've done an
growing.
Oscar. I've done an Oscar for Star Wars. It came into our workshop because it got damaged.
No kidding.
So I did that. It was quite. So I had a picture with that, and it was like in the time
That would be
there
pretty
was no
cool.
cam. We had no phones. We only had a normal camera. So you have
Yeah.
this sort of thing. It's all totally different now, isn't it? It's like you just. I mean, I've got stuff of memories of where I, films that I've made myself, and nobody's ever seen them yet because
Yep.
I'm not really allowed to share them because
Yeah, I have
even
a
where you
few.
polish sometimes, like in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, I could be there and I'm like polishing and I'm not allowed to say. But these people it was so funny. I did a mace, and there was one in London. There's one where the MPs, Houses of Parliament, they got in where they're having this argument. There's this mace sitting there. I did that one many years ago.
How cool
It
is
got
that?
destroyed. They had an argument. Somebody grabbed it and bang, they smacked it up. So it got all repaired and everything. And they said, anyway, somebody come up to me and they went, it's the Royal Society. The Royal Society is a group of people, of scientists, and Sir Isaac Newton and Darwin and all these
Yep.
people. They were members. Anyway, Prince William, he was going to be made a fellow, and he had to sign the book. And they had this mace, which is a copy of the mace when they're in the House of the Parliament, when they wanted me to polish it. So I went in. I had to go in. I wasn't allowed to take the job out, and it was in the shadow of House of the Parliament, the Buckingham Palace. So I polished it all, and then they said the next day Prince William was going to sign the book, and then he'd be made a fellow. So they showed me the book. Well, I did all the bits of metal on it. I did the inkwell, I did the pens, and Sir Isaac Newton and Darwin and all these people had used this, and so I felt a huge privilege
Yeah.
to do this. So I seem to almost like jump from one job to another. So I think my wife says, "What you got?" I said, "Well, I've got this now, the podcast, and then next week I'm doing this thing in Essex." And I'm going, but I never know what's going to happen ever, you know. And so now we're going to be making a documentary, which that's in May. I'll be doing that. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. So
When you said yes, you'd be on the podcast, I was extremely excited. One, I knew you had been polishing for a long time. Two, I wanted a lot of my friends and the people that listen to my podcast to go and find you so that they can look at some of the things you're doing and appreciate what you're doing. Three, to get your name out there. Um, because I think what you're doing and passing it along to others means a lot to me personally because um, you had hit on it earlier with talking about making that documentary. I have a book. I call it the Polisher's Bible. It's a metal polisher's guide to metal polishing. I can't find another replica of the book. I got one given to me by a very dear friend years back. He's passed on, and everybody always asks me, "Can I borrow it?" I'm like, "No." Like you can come to my
No,
house and
no.
read it, but it's going to stay at my house because I can't find a replica. And he had actually added chapters to this book. And my dream someday is to be able to add my own chapters to this book and have it republished again for the polishing industry when I get closer to retiring. I'm hoping I can sit down
Well,
and add in some
do you know
information
about my
because
book?
honestly, I really want to get one of your books and I need to just send you some money
That's
and have you
really,
send
it's
me
a really
one.
cheap book. They say it's it's the most best-selling book for metal workers in the USA.
Oh, so they
And
do sell it here in the US.
yeah, yeah, it's called, there you go,
Polishing and
Polishing and
Finishing for
Finishing for
Jewelers and
Jewelers,
Silversmith.
Silversmith, and
When
there's my name down the bottom, Stephen Goldsmith. So,
when we get off
and
of this
this,
podcast, send me that on Instagram.
yeah, I
I'm
will.
I'm gonna look it up and get it purchased today to put in my collection because um
I don't get a lot of money for writing a book. I get like 70, it's called 70p for a book, right?
sure.
But I've sold over 12,000 books.
Wow.
So I get money from it. So, oh, you don't get a lot of money for writing a book. But because it's a bestseller, I do get money. And people can download it on a Kindle. And I have had truck polishers get my book because they get an insight into the way things are, because our ways are similar. There's even a guide in there about metal hardness. But what
Yep.
I found was quite interesting was writing about compounds. The compound is like you got vegetarians, you got the eco warriors, you've got the religious fanatics, and you've got all this. So with the compound, they go, I can't have that one because it's made of meat. So you've got
Yep.
the veggies. So the one that I'm using is obviously I'm using the Manzana, which was eco, safe, and everything. Whereas the stuff that really does the job, we can't use any. Well, my students can't use, but I can because I'm 71 and I'm still using it. Like the Tripoli over here will be cancerous, carcinogenic, they call it. So I'm hoping that they've made this Tripoli safe for not creating cancer.
So funny story is um I've gone down this road with a number of polishers that have come through, and I have a few salesmen that come by to try to sell me stuff all the time. There's a few companies that won't make anything Tripoli based because they believed years back that Tripoli was one of the leading causes of Alzheimer's. The company that actually did the study for Tripoli creating Alzheimer's um, was also the one selling the cure for Alzheimer's. So the study was barnished from the beginning. As it turns out, the Tripoli wasn't what was causing the Alzheimer's and wasn't actually carcinogenic. It was the aluminum dust and stuff that we were working on that was creating those issues,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So Tripoli got the blame for it because that company wanted to shut down Tripoli because they were creating a synthetic Tripoli, and that's why they put out the study was they wanted to kill off the companies that were making Tripoli to create a synthetic Tripoli. And then the same thing with what was the other one? I think the story I got told, and I don't know how much truth there is to this. So, for those of you that know the Burns family and actually know the real story, when Burns passed on and passed his company on, um, I think the ingredient in burns is red oxide.
Yeah,
Red
yeah.
iron oxide, I think, is
Like
the one.
rust. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think at the time, um, good quality red iron oxide was getting harder and harder to get a hold of. And not only was it getting harder to get a hold of, but there was also a similar study to what they did with Tripoli, saying that it was a carcinogenic product that extended exposure over time could lead to cancers, right? And it was the same kind of situation. So a lot of people stopped using burns. The bigger companies, like Jackson Lee, they slowed up their production of the red iron oxide bars. Could you still get them? Yes. But since a lot of that stuff happened, a lot of people found supplements that still worked pretty decent. So a lot of the Reds just kind of went to the sideline. Nobody wanted to take on the risk of what would happen if somebody caught cancer. Are we liable? Are they liable?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
where does
yeah.
that all fall, right? So, Tripoli, as far as I know, has no real carcinogenic properties at all.
No,
They've
no.
gone back and redone a study on it, and it's not bad for you at all anymore. But there's still a few people out there that been around since that time, and companies that make Tripolis that won't make it anymore because they still think, is it worth the risk? No, it's not worth the risk for us. So they make the synthetics. And I've compared regular Tripoli to synthetic Tripoli in my shop. I should probably make a video about it at some point in time. I personally find that the synthetic Tripoli just doesn't cut as well.
No, no.
Um, Natural Tripoli, nothing cuts like natural Tripoli.
I
I
know.
know a lot of people that use Menzerna because it's for beginners, it is a lot easier because it's greasier and it's a lot easier to work with. But once you get around the learning curve of using Tripoli, not much beats the cutting power of Tripoli.
I know.
Um,
I
but
use
on
it with
stainless, it doesn't do anything.
I use it with a felt, compressed wool.
Yep, yep,
And if I heat, so I heat the bob up, what we call the bob. We heat it up with a pumice block,
yep.
lump pumice, and I heat it up until it smokes. And then when I put the Tripoli in, it absorbs into the felt, and then I don't have to do much. As long as I keep it
Whoa.
hot, it's like it removes all your marks and then gets you up to a decent standard to go to the final stage. And I
Hold
go,
on.
oh,
Hold on, hold
felt
on,
and
hold on, hold on,
Tripoli.
hold on.
It's like I do it. I've done a video on it. So I heat the felt up, and we got knife edge felts, we have flat felts, and
You just
so
blew
call them
my mind
bobs.
right there. Let me absorb that for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah,
You're using the pumice stone to heat up the pad to absorb the compound.
yeah. To get the friction, so because it doesn't work cold, felts and a lot of mops won't work cold. So you warm them up, and then you apply the compound. It goes sucks it up, and then you're off. And it's like amazing stuff. And like an edge for you, you got a nice crisp edge. You use a felt with this heating up the Tripoli on the job, and you'll get a nice crisp edge, which is
Whoa.
like maybe for this would be like on the top. So for me doing all the inside, I might be rounding the edge off. I could just put it onto a hot felt, go like that. I do it. We do it on the side quite a lot, called lapping, and then I just do this, and it crisps up the edge. And if I want to do something like this, all the detail, I don't even see that, but like I would like do with a brush. We use a lot of black bristle brushes on
Yep.
this, and then I might just want to pick out something, so I use like a felt just to bring up the gleam with the Tripoli. So that's the art. That's the art where I can look at something and I'm thinking, well, I've got a frog here, I've got the reeds here. What can I do to make this sort of stand out? So, and then,
For those of
yeah,
you that are
so,
listening to this podcast and not watching it on YouTube or one of the platforms, I am visibly shocked right now. Like, that one statement just blew my mind and changed the way I've been thinking about this for a long time. So I've always used pumice stone, but I've only ever used it to clean for my high finish. Only because I thought the pumice stone was just fraying the fabric different than raking it.
Yeah, you know what
But
I use. I've got one of those.
and I tell people don't use screws all the time, but I watch you
Yeah, I know.
use them.
I use screws,
But
and people go to me.
you also start your buff on fire after, right? To burn off
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's another thing that I get a lot of hassle about. Like we're talking about the abuse from people online, whereas I would use this, and people will go, "Well, it's steel, so you're rubbing steel onto metal."
correct,
And
yeah. But
but then
that's what a rake is too. So
that's what a rake is. So I rake it, I make these, I soak it in wood, and then I do that, put the screws in, and then that lasts me for the rest of my life. So
but
a
my
person
only
makes,
concern was like somebody going to a random hardware store here, you're buying cheap Chinese
yeah, yeah,
screws. You're not buying quality steel screws. You're buying a cheap and little bits and fragments of that steel are breaking off. If you were buying an actual hardened steel screw, like a structural steel
mm,
screw, cool, perfect. That's going to work really well to build your own rakes. I always watched your videos where you're burning off that excess fabric, and mentally I could figure that out. I was like, okay, so he's burning off the frays so that he has a fresh edge to buff on, right? But in my head, I'm thinking like my wheel polishing room where we've got big machines, there's fabric laying everywhere on the floor in there. We clean it
it's
every
going to
day and
catch
there's still
fire. Yeah,
fabric. I'm like, if that fire drops a little bit on the ground, the whole room's gonna go poof.
it never has, and I only do it on a brand new mop. I'd
Right.
never do it on a mop that's been used because you just don't know what's on the mop. So I never ever, and it's mainly a lot of these videos that I do are set up. So basically, I would make the mop more fluffy than what it needs to be to do the video. So when it
Sure.
catches fire, it becomes more. So,
Yeah.
but in normal daily, I would just literally get a candle and I'd just go like that, and just burn the little frays off. We can even do it with a lighter. Just do that, just burn the little bits off. And then I put it back on the machine and I use like a blade, like a little knife, and I trim what I call it's called the toast. So the brown bit on the mop. So I burn it off and then it's like good to go. But another thing that I do use, which you might not use, but you spoke about it, is I use a thing called paraffin. Do you know paraffin?
Paraffin wax, yeah.
So as you're using the alcohol, I'm using paraffin. And when did these coins, it's the only way I could possibly, if you used a mop that had no paraffin on it and just used the compound like the Burns Rouge, it wouldn't be the same. You get all the scratchy finish. The moment that you put this paraffin on it, it like made a nice blend. And another thing is they've got a vegetarian rouge as well. And I tried the vegetarian rouge and I tried the Burns Rouge. It's not comparable. The Burns Rouge is still the best. And these coins, that is like a hardness of maybe about 2. So silver's 3. And it would be like, if you did it the wrong way round, you'd get like a misty. Do you know about burning metal when you're
Yep.
polishing it?
Yep.
So you use wrong method and you just burn the metal. And a
Yep.
lot of people blaming it on bad silver, but it's not really bad silver. It's bad polishing,
It's
you know,
improper technique. Yeah.
improper techniques. They like if they use a big mop, it does it quick. But I use a lot of little mops. It's interesting about mops. Look,
Holy cow. That's a cutter right
I,
there.
I never use that one. This is my I've got one. There you go. That's one of my mops.
Wow.
So this one has actually been burnt up. It's all been burnt, and you got all those little frays. Now, if that little piece of metal come out, and it had a bit of rouge on there, it'd whack the silver and create a
Yeah.
scratch.
A little
So
scratch, yeah.
basically, that's the reason. Once they're burnt, you never have that problem. It almost like seals it. So I've got because your
Can I
mops are
ask?
completely different. So
Can I ask
there's
what
one
kind
that's
of
not been
pumice?
done.
Yeah,
That's the mop I use.
sure.
So nothing like your mops. Your
Yeah,
yours are all like a bit wavy, and
yeah.
you
My
have
airways
stick
are completely
mops, and
different.
we're so different in
Can
our
I ask what
technique.
kind of pumice stone you use?
Right, the pumice stone is just a normal block we call it lump pumice.
Lump pumice.
Just what we do it in England. We go into a chemist and we do our feet with it. You know, they rub the hardness off your feet with a piece of
Yeah,
lump pumice. I bought, well, when I was in Mexico, they had some, but it was a bit red. Now our lump pumice is a bit sort of more grey, and you can get a piece of pumice and you can like get two bits and you can grab them, hold them in your hands. One to be heavy and one to be light. I always have the light one, never the heavy one, because the heavy ones have got like more sort of bits in it, more crevices. They can do damage, so we don't want to do that. I know you're still mind blown about this pumice block and the Tripoli and the felt. So
uh, honestly, I do not find myself speechless very often. When you said that you're using the pumice stone to heat the fabric to get the compound to soak in, that blew my mind because I've never been able to figure out. So in my polisher's Bible, right? It always says use pumice when you're getting close to the final finish, but it never explained why. Other so my brain always went to, well, pumice is less abrasive than a rake, right? So
yeah,
the amount of frays on the end of the fabric, on the end of the buff, are going to be a lot less because of the pumice, right? So it's a lot less abrasive than the rake. So I just assumed we're creating less frays on the end of the fabric. But when you said
yeah,
use the pumice to heat it, to soak the compound in, the biggest issue with your softer finishing bars is they don't like to soak into the fabric. They like to get stuck to the edge and then blow off as soon as you're using them,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas the second you said that, my brain went to, I'm going to do this today because I know that now that if you build that up hot enough, when you're done, when you heat the pad up and then you put the compound on, do you wait and let it cool so that it soaks in, or do you go at it right away while it's still
Straight
hot?
away, straight away. But the tool that I use isn't one of these. It's like it's a felt, so it's like it's like compressed wool into almost like a solid bob, like a block, and it's round. And if you don't heat them up and you basically put the compound on, it goes cold and it doesn't work. So I go to my students, oh, you know when you get dirty compound on a job,
Yes. Yeah.
so that's from heat. So you've not got enough heat on the job. So basically, I say to my students, too much of that, too much chatting. You've got to head down, get your head down, warm the job up, and then it will work. When I did these coins, I was working in my workshop, which was really cold, and I just warmed the coins up with friction, and then once after about half an hour maybe, I could start working on it. But really, if it was too cold, the compounds don't work. You know that the
Yeah.
compounds you need to be warm to get
Yeah.
everything working.
Yeah.
So I might have to, I'll try to remember, and I will show the video to you on Instagram. I'll show you it. But my Instagram, a lot of them are 90 seconds. And because what happens is the questions I get asked on my private messages, people ask me a question. So sometimes I might have to do a video of it to
Yeah.
answer that question, but it
Yeah.
takes 90 seconds. I never do anything longer than 90 seconds to answer a question.
Sure.
Whereas with YouTube, you get a lot of people trying to keep you online for up to an hour and then really never solve your problems. And well, you
No.
know, if you go to a meeting, it's all sorted in 30 seconds, really,
Yep. Yeah.
not 2 hours.
Yeah. I tell people the only reason why my videos are longer is because it just takes longer to explain it. I don't make them long because I want you to sit and watch for 2 hours worth of it. Like if you do, great. But
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
showing you 2 hours, it's because it took me 2 hours to polish that part. But most of the stuff I'm working on, I can't time lapse because as I'm going, the transitions change or the pressure needs to change in different areas. So I have to make a full length video in order for that to happen. Um, Man, I am still just mind blown and speechless right now over this pumice stone idea. I have a few pumice stones here. I've played with them over years. I've never gotten better results with it. Um, I bet
I
it's
would
because I've
never,
never gotten the compound to soak itself in from heating it up. I've
I've
never
never
let the pad get
tried a
hot because
pumice block
I always assumed
on
it
that.
needed to be cooler to get to the finish, right? So I never
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
about heating the pad up to get the compound to soak in so that it could be cooler while it's doing its job, but still be in there. Because compound is what a lot of people don't understand, and you hit on it early on in our conversation, which was over an hour and a half ago, but you hit on it that um, polish, you don't need to keep rubbing it on and rubbing it on and rubbing it on and rubbing it on and just mashing a ton of it in because once the pad's full, the pad's full. So
Yeah.
I never really comprehended that. Um, Compound is just the medium in which you polish at. The mop or your buff is what builds your heat and the aggressiveness to make that medium do its job quicker, faster, or slower, right? So you could take any buff. It doesn't for I'll just relate to my side. You could use an orange buff, a yellow buff, or a white buff. All of them you could use with brown Tripoli. Orange is going to cut the fastest. Yellow is going to cut not as abrasive as the orange. And then white is going to cut way less abrasive.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
you did all three of them on the same exact part that you're working on, the softer buff is going to leave you a softer finish. The heavier buff is going to leave you a heavier finish. But you wouldn't want to use a soft buff all day, every day, because it's going to take a 2 hour job and turn it into a 12-hour
Oh,
job.
yeah, yeah. And
So,
if it's the I've discovered especially with silver, if the buff's too soft and it like creates this sort of what we call an orange peel finish. So it's all like little micro dots in the
yeah,
reflection. So that means that the mop is too soft. So I then virtually chuck the mop away and then get another mop that's got a little bit harder, and then
yeah.
it does the job. And another
So
thing that's
that's,
quite interesting is I use mops that are quite thin, like you
yep,
use mops that are quite thin, and then I
yep.
would use this finish. So that one, and this one would be great if I'm trying to just get the mass done quickly. But this would be the one that I would do the final finish with. So just to flick over, but I use a lot of
Yep.
paraffin, the liquid, to bring the temperature down so I can make it perfect. Like you get measured, don't you, in
Man,
reflections?
I am
But
so
I've
glad I had
never
this
ever,
conversation today.
yeah,
So many things make more sense now than they've ever made for me before. And
good,
I've been doing
good.
this 28 years, and just in that one statement, my brain thinking I'm gonna have to go and try a bunch of new things, but just now forcing my brain to think outside of the box with the mentality that you just gave me, a lot of things that I've questioned over the years are really starting to make sense now. Um, a stiffer buff for the finish. I always found a stiffer buff worked better for my
Yeah,
really high-end finish than a
yeah,
softer
yeah,
buff. And I could never
yeah,
understand that because I always thought a softer buff should finish better just on premise, right? But um, I wonder now if it's because of the way the buff holds the compound that the stiffer buff worked better because the lighter compound was sticking on the edge better
yeah,
and that medium, right? A lot of my finishing bars that I sell through my website and that we use here in my shop a lot of my high-end bars have paraffin in them. I find paraffin is a great wax for um, preserving a finish when you're done,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
especially in
another thing.
aluminum, especially in
Yeah,
aluminum. Putting that paraffin in there and jamming it into the pores helps make it last longer. Um, but if you use like Dawn dish soap or something to wash it, it's going to take a lot of that paraffin off anyways. So you want to use a neutral safe soap. Um, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense that a stiffer buff, the reason I was getting a better finish was because it was holding the compound better. Whereas if I use the pumice stone to heat it, I would get it to soak in properly. Maybe I would get a better finish with a softer buff again just by doing a different process. You know, had I
they
not talked to you, I did never in a million years
no, no,
thought
never
to do
worked it
that.
out. A lot of watch polishers
Wow.
actually they use a harder buff than I would because of the angles on a watch, and they're so hard. But and I'm always on about my mop on the face being reasonably clean, whereas a lot of people's mops are clogged up with compound and they're like become solid, but they're still using them and they still get a decent finish, but they will not get the finish high end. You
Yeah.
know,
I
that's the
tell
thing when
everybody
you're like
in
high
the
end
semi world,
polishing,
it doesn't really matter. You know, like
different, different.
the
Yeah.
we're not grading museum pieces.
No,
We're not
no.
pricing them out. Like, can you do that? Absolutely you can, but as soon as you go through a truck wash and Joe Blow running the pressure wash company grabs his brush and brushes across it, he's going to put more scratches in it
Yeah,
than
yeah,
your
yeah.
finish was too fine.
I
And you've
had
spent all this
there
money
was
for
a
the
medal
customer.
that I did, and it was for Afghanistan medals. It was a military medal, and they were making them, and then they polished them up, and then they got a what they got a steam cleaner, the steam cleaner gun, and they went whoosh, like that, and they like sandblasted the medal
Oh no.
because it's
Oh
so
no.
powerful. So
Yeah.
they didn't realise that from doing this, it created a sandblast, and also you got to make sure you got to have clean water in there, otherwise it's just going to create all these other things. And you know about you might have seen it is that I use a brass bristle brush with soap, like fairy, I call it fairy liquid. You might, I don't
Yep.
know what you, Dawn or something like that, you use it.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
put it onto this brush, onto the job, and it just gets all the textures. So if I wanted to, say, do this, it was just white, I'd use a brass bristle brush and go over it, and it would bring up all the detail. And like last week, a lady said, the money that you charge for the day in that one technique has paid for the day. You know,
I'm
you just don't know what you know sometimes.
you know what's crazy is through my personal training course, I've trained people that were brand new polishers that have never touched a grinder before. They just thought I want to become a polisher. And my shop was the first time they even held a grinder. And then I've trained some polishers that at the time I think I was maybe 15 or 18 years in at that time when I started training. I trained a guy that had been polishing for 30 years.
Wow.
He had been polishing for twice as long as me, but he had an issue with the back end of fuel tanks. He would leave lines in the back end of fuel tanks. And Glenn, if you're listening, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna talk our story here. But he had such a bad habit of doing the same thing for years, and he would just hand polish over the top of it to hide it, and it was fine. His customers were cool with it. But for him personally, he wanted to get rid of it because he wasn't happy that he was doing it. He knew he was doing it, but he didn't know how to fix it. He'd been doing it for 30 years. And it took me like 4 to 6 hours to teach him how to not do it. And then the second I walked away, he went right back to it because it was habit, right?
Ah,
It was old habit.
yeah.
And it took another 4 hours again to get him to get rid of it. And by the time he left here, he could polish a fuel tank with no lines in it. And I still see him once in a while at truck shows, and I still see his work, and he's still doing it. He's still leaving lines in the backs of fuel tanks, and he's like, Evan, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't get it out of my head. He's like, I know how to do it properly. I've been doing it for 30 years and I just can't fix it. And I'm like, well, that's a mentality problem. Like if you want to fix it, you would.
You
But
could, yeah.
yeah, you have to put your mind to it. You have to train yourself to do it differently. And I find that myself now that I'm 28 years in, I don't want to say I'm set in my ways, and maybe because I've changed so many things up for the years I've been doing it, as I've been learning, I've been evolving, that I don't have too many bad habits that I'm stuck with. I'm always willing to learn something new. So I struggle with that because I'm like, I
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
he could do better, but he's actively choosing not to by not correcting the problem every day. Um, but back to
I had
that
a guy,
Polisher's
he was
Bible.
32 years in, and he started saying, I've heard all about the gold polishing guru. I'm not impressed by what you do. You give away the trade secrets and everything. And on this class, he said, well, it was a Sunday, and he said to me, I'm only on this because I'm going to get double time. I'm going to get paid twice the amount. And then tomorrow, I'm going to get a day off. He said, just for spending a few hours with me. So he said, I'm okay with that. I'm fine. Anyway, I had another guy. I said, look, that guy over there, he's in the shop. He's selling jewelry. He's not even touched a machine before. And I'm going to show him, and he'll be as good as you in an hour. And he
Yeah,
went, no way, no way. And
yeah.
then by the end of the day, he had his arm around me, wanted selfies. And he said, I just don't know how you do that. I've been
Yeah,
in workshops, like we've said before, 20 polishers, and people walk out of the workshop because they say that I'm giving secrets away. I said, well, the thing is, if you'd helped your work colleague to become better, then everybody be happy. Then it won't get me in. But they have to
yeah,
get me in because I'm an outsider. I'm not involved in all of the politics within the company. I come
yeah.
in, I see the problem, I sort it out. And there was a guy, he was not on my course, and he was sitting next to this guy that was a bit grumpy. And he said to me, I know you really, in the jewellery where the stone goes in, it's called a collet. I know you can make that hole really shiny, but how do you do that? And I go, well, I get a spindle, which is tiny, as big as a collet, and I've just put some what we call cotton wool. Do you know about cotton wool?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
spent,
where you
you've
put it on
seen
my
it
hand.
on my thing a lot. 4 million hits spinning cotton wools on spindles. And it's just amazing. I can tell all the best things in the world, and all I need to do is spin a bit of cotton wool on a cot, and it's like 4 million hits. I get a million hits just by one night. So it's quite interesting. Anyway, I showed this guy what to do, and he went, I just can't believe it. He said, I'm 60. I can't believe that you just taught me something. I go, well, even I could learn something. I know somebody could teach me something, and I would know I never knew about it. So,
I'm telling you that I'm still just mind blown because, like I said, that Polisher's Bible, I've read the pumice stone story a number of times. It never said use the pumice stone to heat the pad to soak the rouge in. Like that book is so outdated. It doesn't have anything. Only has like one chapter on airways, and even then, airways were in the development stage when this book came
yes,
out. So
yes.
it really, I really think where I want to add to that book is I want to add the newer technology that's come about since then. I'm really excited for this coming year. This past winter, I've worked with a big manufacturer to develop some new products that, for us with the wheel polishing side on the machines, there's a gap, right, in the sanding process. A lot of people use setup wheels with roll hot glue and sand or cold
Yeah,
glue
yeah.
and sand. So a lot of guys use that and it works, right? It doesn't work great. It's not it's not the most ideal application that we could use, right? And then there's the guys that have the Scotch Brite wheels that sell those. We
Yeah,
sell them
yeah.
as well. They work, but they don't work as well as they could. So we actually spent the better part of this winter donating a lot of my own time to creating some new products. And I just posted on my YouTube the other day that we've got some new products. I'm waiting for them to come in stock right now, and then I'm gonna post up some videos launching about them. But I'm hoping that when people get these, they're like, this is changing the industry. And I'm hoping that before I retire, I can add a few chapters to that book about current technology and try to get it republished so that
Yeah,
much
yeah,
like your book, polishers could find use for it in my industry. And I'm
yeah, yeah.
excited to read your book so that I can um, see what relates from your side to our side because I'm I know I've been talking about this for the better part of 20 minutes now, but my mind is literally blown. And there's very few times in my career where I've been speechless, where I found something that I was like, man, that is going to change my high-end finish.
Mm-hmm.
I think that mixed with the alcohol, I could grade it maybe a mid A to a high A, um, just by that one statement in the middle of a podcast
Yeah, yeah.
that I'd have never thought. My God,
You never know what you're
that's
going to speak
amazing.
about, do you, on these podcasts?
No, and that's part of the greatness is now somebody else listening to this podcast. I get every podcast I've ever put out has been a minimum of 10 messages all the way up to a couple hundred messages of people that are like, man, I found great content in there that helped me either one, stay in the business when I thought my business was dying, I was going to give up, and I chose not to give up thanks to listening to somebody else telling me that they struggled doing the same thing, or I learned something and I now know I need to pitch my business better to customers, or I need to change the way I'm polishing so that I can sell to my local area or whatever it is. I know that that one statement is going to go down as one of the biggest things that has ever been dropped on the podcast here.
No, cool.
Only because so many people are trying to find that high-end finish and haven't been able to get it. And honestly, when this podcast is over, I'm going to call a bunch of my
You're going to go and have a go.
I'm gonna go try it myself, and then on top of that, I'm gonna
Yeah,
talk to a couple of my really close polishers that I'm friends with that we've had some long conversations on how to try to get that high end finish, and we've all been stumbling. And I think that I have a feeling that that one thing is gonna make a huge difference.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I was a betting man, I would invest in some pumice on Amazon because I bet Amazon's gonna sell a whole lot more pumice in the next couple days
yeah,
after
yeah.
this
Well,
podcast comes out.
I'm quite lucky because um, there's a company in England, in London, and we have this thing called the Guru List. So you go onto their website, and you basically type in the word guru, and the name of the company is called HS Walsh, and they're very good because what happens is that my students, I say to them, all that we've spoken about on my course, you can buy on the Guru List,
Sure.
and so they go to that website. If I went on their website and I didn't have the Guru List, I'd be as confused as everybody else trying to
Yeah.
find all the tools and all that. But there's a list of maybe 37 tools. And so they can grab those, and then they spend. I don't get, there's no money actually on what I'm trying to do is help my students. So they've got a list of decent tools because everybody has this big mop in their workshop, which they're never ever
Right.
going to use. So basically, it's quite funny. So they buy little mops for beginners, and they get to learn, and then they get more confident. So Walsh, these HS Walsh, are really useful for that. And obviously, from that, then they learn. Oh well, I've got that tool, or I could have used that tool in stock at home, or I could get it maybe somewhere else. Another person, another company, Cookson's in England, is very good. So that's really funny because one day I was in Birmingham, and there's a company called Cookson's, and I went in there and I went, I'm teaching. They said, what's that mean to us? I said, it means that you're going to sell out of compounds because I'm in the town, and they're going to go, well, we want some of that compound that Steve's using. And I go, well, you can get it over the road at Walsh's or Cookson's or whatever, and say Walsh's sell out. They actually literally sell out when I'm in town, and they go, well, where else can we buy it? And we go, well, we go over Cookson's, but Cookson's have bigger bars, whereas students don't need big bars. So the
Right.
idea is that we make, well, in the Burns Rouge, we've got one of my schools that I teach at, they've melted the Burns Rouge down to the size of a Mars bar, like a little Mars
Really?
bar. Yeah, they melt them down so a student can use them. because they don't need a big bar of Burns Rouge. They need a
Yep.
little bar.
Yep.
And the shops, they're not interested. They don't want to do that. They don't want a little bar. They want to sell you a big bar. But the big
They want to
bar's
sell you the 6 pound
47
bar, yeah.
quid, you know,
Yeah.
whereas a little bar, tenner. So, I mean, it's maybe not economical sense to buy a little bar, but for jewelers who are like at home are not going to be like us using the bar up in a week.
Right.
That would last them maybe for the rest of their life. And people don't see that. They don't see these people that are hobbyists
Yep.
as making economic sense, but they
Yep.
are. So,
In my store, I mainly only sell the things I use here in my shop. I have a few
yeah,
things in
yeah,
my store that I sell because I have customers buying a lot of other stuff from us that they had something specialty that they were buying from somebody else. I'm like, well, I can order it in, stock it, and then when you order, you're ordering everything all in one place. But there's very few things in my store that I personally don't use.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
just because I don't have a use for them. Whereas I know my customers do have a use for it. So I'll stock it because I know they're going to use it. Um, but I always tell everybody, if everybody quit buying from me, I could use up everything that's in my store and retire off of what's in my store just doing the polishing in-house because I still polish 5 days a week. In the
yeah,
winter,
yeah,
not so much anymore. I can kind of do these things. I can do the podcasts and my YouTube videos and get ahead on some of that stuff. But for the grand scheme of things, in the summer, I'm 5 days in the shop, 1 day in the office, and some days 2 days in the office mixed in. Um, so it gets to be a lot, but my store, I don't sell just everything just for the sake of selling it. I sell it because I want people to have a one-stop shop place that they can go and buy these
yeah,
things
yeah, yeah,
and try to make it as simple as possible. Because I know when I first started, I'd go to some of these websites for some of these other big companies and I was just lost. There's 5 different kinds of brown and 10 different kinds of
yeah,
green
yeah,
and 6 different kinds of black. And then I'd get a black that everybody told me to get and I'd get it and I'm like, this doesn't work. And I'd call the manufacturer and go, why isn't this working for that? They're like, oh, because that's designed for steel, not for aluminum. Will it work on aluminum? Sure, but it's going to be like sanding it. I'm like, well, I don't need that. I've already sanded it. So it was like, why am I adding all these extra steps? So it was just super confusing. So when we got into selling our own product, we wanted things to be super simple and a one-stop place that you could find boom, 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 step one, step two, step three, step four and
yeah.
five if you wanted to go that route. But yeah, no, that's awesome that you work with local companies when you're going and doing training courses because I never really thought about that when I go and deal with somebody when I'm flying somewhere to train people. I've never thought to try to find them a local source on where to get some of their things. I always
I
just
was
ask
teaching
them what they're using before I go.
In Zimbabwe, and the company HS Walsh actually sent all the tools that I use to Zimbabwe for me. So when I got there,
Really?
they were there.
Really?
Yeah, they were so helpful. Then because I was in Zimbabwe, I was going to Mauritius after that. Then they made the parcel up in Zimbabwe, what I needed, and they put it into a parcel, and I took it with me. So it was like getting that little jump to somewhere. Like when I was in Mexico, there was a company that sent my polishing tools over to Mexico. So when I got there, I would still be able to use and still do what I do. Because that's the thing, you got when you're going through customs and all that, you can't have any stuff with you. So you
Oh, it's
send it
hard.
first, and then you can do it.
I wear a I
Even the
wear a full
metal.
face respirator. I wear a full face respirator all the time.
Yeah,
You know how crazy they look at you when you're trying to carry on a full face respirator? Because
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I don't want to put it down in my luggage in the bottom because if it gets crushed on top of everybody else's stuff, I'm gonna have to find one local, and I don't want to try to find one local because they're always super expensive when you find it local. They're not a decent price, and two, they're really hard to find local. So, if I don't carry mine with me, I always carry it on the plane, and everybody always looks at me side-eyed like, "What's this guy got going on that he's carrying a full face respirator around?" But I just don't want to risk it breaking and having all that stuff happen. So. I can understand that. Every time I travel international, I went to one of my trips to Canada. I put a grinder, my rouges, and my buffs inside of my bag that went underneath the plane. And luckily nothing happened with it. But when I got there, there was the paper slips in it that said we searched it and tested it. And there was actually chunks of my bars missing that they must have cut chunks of the bars off to test them to make sure they weren't explosives or whatever they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
testing them
yeah.
for. But I never thought about that until I got there that trip, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sell this guy the grinder and all of this stuff that I brought along because I'm not taking it home. I'm not risking that
No,
coming
no,
home.
no, not worth it.
And it was interesting, but yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I used to take so when I was working for a company and I had to fly up there. They wanted to meet me. They used to send me down like 10 kilos of silver, and then one day they said we'd like to meet you, and so I flew up there because then I got stuck at customs with all this silver, and they got it all out and they hoovered all the bag and everything like this, and obviously there was nothing wrong in there, but it's a real pain to have to go through this inconvenience. So when I started teaching in the Netherlands, I actually left all my a bunch of tools there, all the compounds, and then I'd come home and so most schools that I teach at, I've got a stock of my compounds already there. But and then I travel with my in my car with up to 5 polishing machines. They're like fixed on a bench. So I've 5 of those. I can teach because each student has to have a spindle each. I'm not
Yeah.
having. It's not fair to have one tool that we've all got to share. So every person has one spindle each. And so I take them all with me in my car and then we set them up when I get there. So I have to be there the night before. But then I've obviously
Wow.
got all my own compounds and the tools, the metal that we all polish. And I'll bring it with me. And sometimes all depends on the deals with the school. Sometimes the school supplies the metal. Sometimes I take the metal. It's always 6 inches by 2 inches, and it's called gilding metal. Gilding
Yep.
metal is a bit a cross between zinc and brass. It
Yes.
has
Yes.
the personality of polishing silver. So if I was to get brass, I find brass a lot harder to polish, whereas this gilded metal really comes up well. So when I was teaching in Mexico, they got it for me. But they're cutting, when they cut it, they polish it, have done it, they must have done it with a hacksaw or something, and all the edges were all gouged and everything. Whereas normally it's on a guillotine and they're like nice clean edges and everything like that. So
It's funny you
it's
say polishing personality in the metal. I'm gonna start using that in my videos. I hope you don't care that I
yeah,
steal that because
no,
every metal
it's
does have its
different.
own personality. They're very different in the way they act. I have a very funny way of teaching people the difference between aluminum and stainless that I can't say in public because I wouldn't want to be canceled for it. But um, aluminum's super simple because it is very soft, and copper and brass are even easier yet because they're even softer than aluminum. They require a lot less sanding to get them shiny, but to get them perfect, they require a ton more work because they're so soft. Um, but personality in polishing the each metal has its own personality is a great way of looking at it
Yeah,
because
yeah,
if you go into polishing and you try to treat every metal the same, much like you said earlier, trying to use a brown on stainless, it didn't work real well because
no,
stainless is
no,
a non-porous metal. It's very hard. And brown, the Tripoli is actually softer than the stainless. So trying to cut something really hard with something really soft doesn't work all that well.
no, no,
Um, you need something more like an alumina or emery or something along those lines that are harder than stainless to help cut through it to get it smooth. Or zirconia, I guess, would probably work as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's crazy that you say that because um, I know some polishers in the high-end world that use diamond polishing paste, and
yeah,
some of
yeah,
those diamond polishing pastes are like 1 million grit, 2 million grit, and
yeah, yeah.
it's actually smoother than paper they're finishing with, and that to me is wild.
I I go up to 12,000 grit. That's good enough. If you've
Yeah.
done 12,000 with silver and gold anyway and platinum, if you go up to that, it's nearly done. And I find that's better because basically you can do it all for the jeweler, you can do it all on the bench, make it nice. And then when I go to it with my mop, I won't have to do too much. The more I spend on do it on the metal, it's going to change. The edges change. It go like this. So they do it with 12,000. They hate it. They hate me saying you've got to do platinum 12,000. And I tell them how to do it. It's like you got to do it by hand 24
Yeah.
times. So, 24 times this way, 24 times that way. And then the next grit, 24 times, 24. So we go through the grits and it's going to take them all morning to do a job. And they go, but they haven't got the patience
Yeah.
for that.
That's
Not
why I don't
anymore.
do the little stuff is I don't have the patience for it. I like seeing
No.
the reason I love metal polishing is it's instantly gratifying. And to me, that instant gratification feels so good. I don't know, it like creates a rush of endorphins or whatever it is for me. I just love seeing that metal instantaneous change. And when I have to break out a sander and it's going to take me 4 hours to do a fuel tank, I don't even want to do it because I know it's going to take me 4 hours to get the happiness that I want out of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, do you know do you know the famous polisher on the East Coast? I'm struggling to remember his name, and I should have looked it up before I was talking to you. There's a guy that does a lot of sculptures on the East Coast of the U.S. here. I cannot think of what his company name is. Um, I've reached out to him a number of times because I wanted to learn his way of polishing because he sands and his polishing is done by sanding. He runs everything out to 2 million grit on these museum quality pieces that he's doing all the time. And he's using a slurry paste
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get there with machines. Oh, darn, I
I
cannot think
make
for the
it.
life of me.
I make this pumice powder, and it's 120 grit. You can buy all different grades of pumice powder from
Right.
this company. So, and I mix it with vegetable oil.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't do it, it's a bit like flour. If you got baking flour, it'd fly everywhere. So the vegetable oil binds it together, and
Yeah.
then I would use sometimes I use a felt, a compressed wool, or sometimes I use leather bobs. So, like say you're doing a spoon, eating spoon, you'd
Sure.
shape your bob the shape of the bowl. So then
Yep.
you'd put sand, get pumice powder, mix it with oil, and then I do it like I'm making pastry. So I make it like a volcano of sand. So it looks like sand on the beach,
Yep.
and then you put oil into it, and then you go like this, and you mix it up,
Yep.
and you make it nice, and then when you're using the sand in with the bob, it cuts, and it
Yep.
cuts so well that you can just use a mop, triply, and it shines straight away, perfect.
Yeah.
It does removes hammer marks, it removes all your file marks, and for a lot of like the sculptural work that I do, I would do all the work, maybe up to not even not even to Tripoli. I don't need to do. If you got a shine in a sculpture, it's not good. So I like leave it sort of matte. Anyway, what I do is I get a sponge, what you wash with, and then I
Yep.
wet it, and I cover it in the sand, the pumice powder, and I rub it all over with it, and it gives it like a sort of a matte sort of finish. Now, if you
Yeah.
do it with
Yeah.
your finger and you go wet and you go like this, it gives like a stripy sort of finish. If you use a sponge, do that. You use sponges, don't you, for your polishing as well, don't you?
So yeah, I tell everybody the same thing. Like, in I'll compare it to our hand polishing paste. I sell a cotton terry sponge, because a lot of people are like, isn't it cheaper for me to just use a towel? You're right, it is cheaper
Yeah,
for you to
yeah,
just use a towel in that exact moment, yes, but long term, no, because you're going to use your fingertips when you're using a towel because there's nothing spongy there in between you. So when you're rubbing a finger across it, you're going to use more pressure in one spot of your finger versus the other. Whereas if
yeah,
you have
yeah,
a pad and you can use your whole hand, your whole hand is a lot more of a flat surface, and that sponginess in between it keeps you from getting high pressure points. The higher pressure points, more pressure, more heat. So anywhere where there's more pressure, like a fingertip, you're going to have a shinier or duller spot because of the amount of pressure that you're putting on and the amount of heat that it's creating, or amount of abrasive that's getting pushed into it, right? So I can understand that a
Yeah,
sponge
yeah,
would work really well for that, because you're giving an even pressure and an even heat pattern. So you're not going to end up in those variations where if you use the finger and put it on, you would end up with highs and lows, because you've got the fingerprint, right? So your prints are going to hold the abrasive different than a sponge would
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
So all those little things would factor into that, and that's genius. I
yeah,
mean, that's the whole reason why I use the Terry pads for polishing aluminum, is because you can get a much broader surface area. And for me, I can reuse that same pad for hours and hours and hours.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
tomorrow, when I want to go use it again and it's all crusty, I can rake it out and use it again tomorrow. Um, but for the
It's the
polishers
same
that
as
are
the
only
Vienna
doing it,
lime. You can just like it goes dry. You just put some more water with it, and you just carry on.
that's
You
exactly it.
know, it was quite funny when I was in the US. I went through Atlanta, and they when they do your fingerprints, I have no fingerprints.
You buffed them all off.
Buffed them all, they got none. So I said, "Oh, just go away or something." I said, "But." They said, "We know everything about you, including your inside leg measurement and everything." I said, "Yeah, but you don't know my fingerprint." So when I come back from Mexico, I had to do the same. And the guy said, "I can't find your fingerprints on online." I went, "Yeah, because I've got none."
I've
He
buffed
was
them all
not happy
off.
that they couldn't find any. I buffed them all off. So,
That's funny. You know, it's funny you say that, because if we buy new guns or we buy suppressors or anything like that, we get fingerprinted for all of that. So the last suppressor that I just purchased, I had to get fingerprinted all over again. And when I was putting the fingerprint on, I made a joke that, like, my thumb is really, like, the prints are almost completely gone on my thumbs and my forefingers, because they're getting melted all day, every day from polishing. And it's funny you say that, because I wondered, like, the next time I go to another country, are they going to be like, your fingerprints don't match up? Well, yeah, because they're getting worn away every day.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Huh. That's funny.
It is funny.
So
So,
in all the years you've been doing this, um, what's kind of been like the highlight or the most interesting thing you've ever done? Um, and it could be that coin that we talked about earlier,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if that was the most interesting, or working for the Queen, if that was the most interesting. Like, what's kind of been like the highlight of your career? I know you said you've been doing this for 50 years. Um, there's a lot of, I'm sure you've done a ton of cool things in those years, and you've mentioned a bunch of them already, but what is the one thing that you would maybe hang your hat on?
Well, it was quite funny. It was I worked in the Tower of London. It's on the Thames. It's like they've got this thing called the Crown Jewels, and they had this wine cistern. A wine cistern is like it was as big as a bath, and it weighed a quarter of a ton. And
Holy
it
cow.
was it was. They said to me originally, just take your camera in. You've got a pass, and so normal camera, no telephones or anything like that then. And I had to take pictures, and it had 110 pieces on this cistern, and it had a top of the water, so unicorns and shells, and down below it had fish and everything under the sea, and they all bolted on. And it was made in 1830, and it took 10 years to make. And by the end of the 10 years, the king who had it made was dead. And anyway, eventually,
Oh no.
Queen Victoria, she got it. So it's interesting story is that the cistern was meant to hold wine. It was meant to hold wine bottles. But during this like interim, they like filled it up with water from Jordan for to bless their children. So, and they
Wow.
still do that now. They actually bring the water from the River Jordan and baptize our children. So anyway, this system held that amount so the babies could be christened. Anyway, Queen Victoria, she decided to have a ladle made and she filled it with wine and it held 144 bottles of wine. So in the 70s, this is in the Crown Jewels, and it's, say, really, really old. It's been lacquered. It's got a lacquer on it. And they hated the lacquer. And they said
Yep.
to me, can you remove the lacquer? So I was under armed guard with guns and everything for 11 days. Like you, with the people following you everywhere. I had one person all the time with me. There's one thing with the working in the tower, you got a proper break. Because when you're working for a boss, you might only get 30 minutes during the day for a break, whereas they made you have an hour, mainly to give the policeman a break from guarding you. And I never really was sure whether it was to guard me or in case I do something wrong with the job, you might shoot me. So but I was in there.
Just been executed on the spot.
Yeah, it's so funny. 11 days in the Tower of London. I was allowed to go home, but that was entertaining. Well, it was interesting because even when it was broken bits, they wouldn't let you take them away. You had to sort of repair them there because nothing is ever taken out. And so it's like the mace. They said this mace has never left. Well, it's like 1660. It's never left the building, and you want to take it home to do it. He said it's not happening. It's going to stay where you are. And I had to come in, and I worked in this like library, which was amazing. And it was just all handwork. It was just with brushes and everything. So that's the wine system. Is what they call the Grand Punch Bowl in the Tower of London. If you ever go to London, you'll get into the Crown Jewels and you'll see that Grand Punch Bowl, and you're thinking, Steve did that. Another thing
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Another quick funny story. I was just going to tell you, it's funny one, is that everybody calls me Steve, and my name is Stephen PH, right? And I always include the M in the middle, Stephen M Goldsmith, right? So if you Google that name, you'll get an amazing Google of Stephen Goldsmith. But if you just put, Steve Goldsmith, Steve, you'll get the mayor of San Francisco. Yeah,
really?
It's really fun. And then where I used to live, there used to be another Steve Goldsmith, and he was a murderer.
Wow.
I always say to people, you must include my full proper name when you're searching for me and the M. And it's the first time with the book, actually. They said, well, normally we'd put SM Goldsmith. I said, you can't do that. It can't be SM Goldsmith. It's got to be Stephen M Goldsmith because of the mayor of San Francisco and this murderer that didn't live very far from me.
I was going to say, you search those and you'd end up in the wrong category for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
So the working in the Crown Jewels. Another one which touched my heart was polishing the coffin for the Queen Mother and Princess Diana. So that was quite, I was actually in Denver. I was actually on holiday in Denver, and it was just the day after Diana was buried, and people came up to me in Denver and said, well, they think that she's related to me. I think Princess Diana I'm royal, and they're thinking no. And they were coming up to me saying, I'm really sorry that you lost a family member and all this. So I went up from Denver, I went up to Salt Lake, I went across Bryce Canyon, Grand Canyon, went to Vegas, ended up in San Francisco. I did a tour on a bus. So that was interesting to do that as a tourist.
I can't imagine how emotional that polish job would have been for you to
I know.
To have lost a member of parliament in such a way that it happened, and to get to be a part of the final resting place. My grandfather was my grandfather and I were very close, and his headstone is bronze, and I always joked with him because they had their headstone sitting there a long time, and him and I always talked that when he passed, I would go and make it shiny for him. And when he passed, it took me a year before I finally went and did it because I had a hard time looking at it after he passed, let alone going and doing it. And when I went to go polish it, when you pull into a graveyard and you got a generator and a buffer running, they look at you funny. But um, the first hour spent trying to polish it, I could not for the life of me get it to polish. And I finally just shut the generator off. I walked away. It was cold that morning, so that could have had something to do with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I went and I walked away and I sat on the bench and I just sat there and I prayed and I talked to him and I was like, Grandpa, I know I promised you that I would do this for you. I just can't. Mentally, I was crying in my respirator. Like I was in just a bad place mentally. I said, I don't think I can do this for you. I know I told you I would do it, but I don't think I could do this for you. And I don't know, something just came about me, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna try a different buff and a different compound. I had never really done bronze before that, so I was completely
Yeah, yeah.
lost. So I was just kind of experimenting, as stupid as that sounds. Um, but I grabbed a different buff and a different compound and I went and did it and it instantaneously started polishing. And I was like, I don't know if this was me talking to him or if the temperature warmed up enough or what it
Yeah,
was, but
yeah,
it just
yeah.
magically worked. So now when you walk through where he's buried, his headstone's like the only one shiny. And all my great aunts and uncles are
Has it
like,
remained shiny? Does it remain shiny or does it?
yeah. So now I go every other year and hand polish it and touch it up. It's getting to the point now where I need to go buff it again. But it's been probably 8, 9 years since I buffed it last, and it still looks decent. But now that I know more about polishing, I want to go back and make it even better. But all my great aunts and uncles are like, "Can you do my dad's headstone?" I'm like, "No, I'm sorry I only did it because it's my grandfather, but I do not want to be in a graveyard polishing a bunch of them. But it was a
No,
very
no.
emotional thing for me because I was very attached, and I couldn't imagine if I ever got a call to polish something for a president or something like that.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
would, I'm very, um, I want to say I'm very patriotic myself, and I would really have a hard time doing that. It'd be to polish while you're emotional is a very difficult place to
Yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah.
You got to be
Yeah.
in the right mindset while you're polishing, or things.
When I polish bronze, I have to wear a mask. Mostly I don't really because silver's okay, but with bronze, within 30 seconds, I felt ill.
Copper and brass do the same to me. Copper, I always tell everybody, copper to me, even with a respirator on, and I don't know how this is possible, but with a respirator on, anytime I polish copper, you remember when you were a kid, you took a 9-volt battery and tested it on your tongue?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's copper for me. As soon as I polish any copper, my sinuses are instantly plugged and it feels like I licked a 9-volt battery.
It's
I
fun, isn't
can't
it?
wrap my head around it, even with a
No,
respirator
no.
on. I've never had an issue with silver, never had an issue with aluminum or stainless, but copper, brass, and that bronze. Now that you say that, that bronze did tear me up really bad because at one point I was crying and I couldn't see real well out of the respirator, so I took it off for a minute, and instantly my sinuses and I didn't feel great. And then I put it back on after I kind of calmed myself down, and then I felt fine again. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It
Levi
made
and
me
I actually talked about that
feel
in his
ill for about a
podcast.
week. Felt like a cold or a flu or something like that. It was like
Yeah,
not a very easy situation to be in. So I always say to people, with base metal, you've always got to wear a mask. And
yeah,
we're not like you, we're not wearing respirators. We're just wearing a dust mask on us
yeah,
just to
paper mask. Yeah.
keep it off our nose. And
Something's better than
another thing
nothing.
with the compounds is the softer the compound, obviously it's going to go up your nose if you're not wearing a mask.
Ends up
So
in
with
your
the
lungs.
new harder compounds, that doesn't really happen. You don't get it dirty.
Yep, yep, exactly. Yep. Well, if you had to, I know you do training courses all the time, so you tell
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
you give people advice all the time, but if you were somebody new or somebody that's been doing this a while and looking for Steve Goldsmith's best piece of advice, what is the one thing that you make sure you tell everybody?
You've got to keep safe. You've got to look after your hands. And times I've seen people they all go on about what I do, but you've got to look after your hands. I've got them all. There's a lot of polishers. Well, in London, well, not that many polishers anymore, but there's at least two that have got lost fingers.
Oh yeah.
You
I know
know,
some over here that are missing fingers.
yeah. And there was one. Funny enough, there was one of my friends. He said there was a polisher been doing it 50 years, and it was his last day, and had an accident on the last day. He
Oh,
thought he was, you just get confident. That's your lot. So I always go, you got to stick with somebody as a mentor. Don't look at the people that are older than you, and don't just push them away thinking they're talking rubbish, because we're not. We've got like me, 55. I mean, have you ever met anybody that's done 55 years in a job?
I
You know,
haven't. Honestly.
no, they're
I
all talking about these people that go, oh, I've done 28 years. You go, 28 years, I'm getting towards double that. You know, it's like
the only
55
thing here in
years.
America you can do for 50 years is be a politician. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's quite funny. So, but
Uh,
I do get people that are quite, younger in the late 20s, and they come to, we have TV shows. It's funny, TV shows to do with jewelry. So they put you
yeah.
on a show. They come to be with me to get trained to go on a show. So it'll be like, be better. Now, anyway, there was this program called All That Glitters. And there's a guy called Hugo, and he won it. And Hugo, I taught him twice. He'd spent maybe 4 days with me in 2 separate years. And he was a real gentleman. He's martial arts. And so they're very dedicated. And
Yeah.
on the TV, they're like, oh, he's like not that good, And I just said to my wife, I said, I can't even bear to watch this anymore because that guy's going to win. He's the best guy out of them all. And he did win. And then, funnily enough, I was teaching another group, and one of the girls in my group was on All That Glitters too. So
No
she'd been on
kidding.
my course, but she got second place.
Wow.
So that was quite good. Then I had somebody else come to my studio and say, Steve, I want to enter All That Glitters. Can you teach me how to polish? So I always have this like connection. Next week, actually, and I think it's next Monday, we have the thing called the Jewelry Oscars. The Jewelry Oscars. It's going to be on YouTube.
I'm gonna have to look
And
that up.
have a look it up. It's called GDC. It's a Goldsmith Council thing, and you have to make the job within a year. And quite a lot of these people, when they make the jobs, they would normally give them to a polisher, because in England we have specialists. So a person who makes, a person who polishes, a person who engraves, but they tend not to mention the polisher. They don't. And then I've been named as the polisher in this
Really?
awards for next week, but not next week, but years ago. And they've named me. And then I won like £1,000 because I got named. And then the
Wow.
next year they named me again because I worked with them. I got another £1,000. So the person who won a gold award, who like was done the better job, he got like, oh no, 500 quid, and I'm getting £1,000 and the best prize what you can get. And he's going, I can't believe this guy. He's so lucky, Because that's happening next Monday night. So
That's
I think
awesome.
it was about 5 o'clock our time it starts. But look, if I find the link, I'll send it to you. But
Do that. Because it'll
yeah,
it'll actually be out before this podcast is out. So I'm gonna
yeah,
watch it
yeah, yeah,
before the
yeah.
podcast comes out. That's gonna be
I
exciting.
forgot that it's not coming out yet because everybody. Obviously, I've got another friend in Sheffield who's a polisher, but younger, And I sent him your invitation. I said to him, you know, why don't you go on this podcast? Because we're trying to promote polishing from the UK. And he goes, oh, what's it all about then? I said, well, we'll find out once I've done mine, won't we? So I wasn't really sure how the Zoom was going to work between us.
Oh, super simple.
It's worked, isn't it? It's all right. Because when I've seen you on the other podcast where you're sitting at a table with somebody else just sort of chatting.
Yep.
This sort of podcast would be quite good because I listen to podcasts on Spotify. So when I'm driving, I put a podcast on, and this would be the sort of thing that gets me there, you know?
You know, I'll tell you, I started these podcasts because I'd have a lot of people come up to me at shows and they would ask me questions and I would give them an answer and they wouldn't believe me. And I was like, a lot of people don't realize, because I think I've been so seen in the industry for so long, that they don't believe me because I've been doing this forever. But I had a lot of the same issues they had when I first started. When I first started polishing, I had a lot of the same beginner issues that they're having now, just mine was 20 years ago. So I'm helping them because it was the same issues I had, but they didn't want to believe me because they see me doing well now and they don't think I had those issues. But when they hear somebody else say it, they're like, oh, it's not just Evan, it's Evan and Steve, or it's Evan and Zach, or Evan and Levi. Other people are having the same issues, so we're all having them. Well, maybe this is an industry-wide issue and we're all just muscling through it, and some of us work through it, some of us don't. So starting that, it started kind of snowballing rather quick. Well, then I think it was last year, I only had one episode in season 5 because I was so busy at the shows, I didn't have time to sit down with people. And this winter, I was like, I need to get it back going. I had so many people ask me, I wish they didn't stop. I wish you had done more of them. And I was like, you know what? I need to fire them back up again. So I started searching for ways to do it so that I could get involved with other people like yourself that are not necessarily able to be here at my shop or be at a truck show where we can sit down and have a conversation together. So we managed to work through all that, and I found Zoom. I was like, maybe there's a paid version where I can record these videos. And there was a paid version, and I looked at it. I was like, it's a minor investment. I don't know, it was like $30 or $40 a year, $50 a year, something like that, to be able to record these videos and be able to upload them. I'm not going to make $1 million off these podcasts, but I'll probably make $50 this year, enough to pay to cover it. And honestly, that's enough for me because I want people to hear that information. I'm still telling you, I know we haven't talked about it in 45 minutes, but that pumice stone is going to go down in history in my brain as one of the biggest things that we've said on the podcast. And that one piece of information is worth way more than the $50 invested to make this Zoom call work for a year. And had I not gone down this road, I wouldn't have gotten that information, and nobody else would have heard the same thing. And the UK, the things that you've learned there in the UK may have never made it into my side of the world with the truck stuff, because you're not training people how to polish trucks. You're training polishers how to do small item. I say small items, but they're not necessarily small. I mean, we're talking.
I've got a friend who's a silversmith, I think, somewhere near in Miami, and he wanted me to come over originally, but because I'm not coming over on a holiday, I'm coming over there to work. They don't like that. I go there to work.
You got to get a work visa and you got to pay taxes and all that stuff. Yeah,
it's a pain. So I've never done it. He was an English silversmith in Miami, and he just teaches it a bit. There was another guy who just recently died. He was a silversmith, and the amount of machinery he had, was like amazing, better than over here. And he sadly died. So we used to have sort of conversations.
What do you charge to fly in and train somebody like that? What's your cost to do something like that? If anybody listening is interested to hire somebody.
Well, somebody wanted me to go over. I did one Zimbabwe. That was about £5,000 for a week. So you have the flights, then they put you up in a hotel. So they pay for the flights, they pay for that, and then I would earn that sort of money in a week. So because I spent most of my time when I went to Zimbabwe in the air. I spent, I left Saturday. I got there Sunday afternoon. I then teaching for Monday, Tuesday. Then I was in the air again. Then I went somewhere else. And he said, well, I said, well, let's take it out of the hat. What can
Yeah.
you say? And I
Yeah.
never, what I do is not on value of anything, it's purely on time things take. Because
Right. Yeah.
I do very expensive things, but it's just about timing. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what your wage is an hour over here, but over here, because polishers don't talk to each other about rates.
Sure.
It's so
You do
difficult.
if you
I could
call
be
them and
going,
pretend to be somebody else.
yeah. And I go to schools and I go, well, I charge, this is what I expect. You pay for my hotel, you pay for my transport, you look after me,
Yep.
hospitality, then you pay my
Yep.
daily rate. But
Sure.
does all the other people that teach do what I do, or do they just swallow all of that and just charge for their daily rate, or do they just involve in their daily rate? I don't know
Yeah.
how people work it. That's how I
Yeah.
personally do. I go, my daily rate plus hospitality, hotels, transport. That's the way I do it. And you never know, because I've been in some places and they will go, say to employ me would be like 500 a day. Somebody might say, we're offering you 160. And I go, so is that what Joe Bloggs says? Is that what he wants? I
Yeah.
want 500 and he worked for 160. I said, no wonder he's getting a lot of work and I'm not
Yeah.
getting a lot of work. It's because he's
Yeah.
like really doing it really cheap. And I
Yeah.
think if everybody spoke to each other about more of a rate, an accepted rate, then we'd be all better off, in a way.
Yeah. See, for here, the cost of living's so different in certain places. Like polishers in New York City, they got to charge $200 a wheel because the cost to live in an apartment there is $2,000 a month. Here,
Yeah.
our cost to live in an apartment here is $700. So guys here can charge $50 a wheel. It's just completely different anywhere you go in the US. There's places polishing wheels for $10 a wheel. I don't think they're doing the same job we are. But
No,
their
no,
cost of
no.
living, they're living out of their van or their camper. So they don't need to make a ton of money and they're happy with making $200 a truck. So
Yeah,
everything's
yeah.
different. And I feel like no matter what industry you're in, whether it's your industry, my industry, the prices vary depending on where you go. I feel like certain areas should talk together and kind of keep their pricing the same just to kind of help each other out and keep their pricing up so that they're not fighting each other and dragging the price down and killing the
We
market.
had
But
this in a company that we was not allowed. There was like 60 guys. We was not allowed to tell the other guy how much you earned. And if you told them, you'd get the sack.
really,
It does cause
wow.
friction to hear that
Yeah, I
somebody
guess
else is
so.
earning more than you. There's
Yeah.
this is a problem. So you tend to not speak about how much you earn.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't talk about it either, just because I don't want people to feel like I'm flaunting it or that
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah.
I did better than anybody else, because I'm not. I will 9 times out of 10, I will outwork most people because I do not like losing and I want to win at everything in life.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's just a me problem. So I push harder and I want to get things done faster and I want to be better than I was yesterday. So it's always a
Yeah,
struggle.
yeah.
Um, but yeah. All right. Well, I think we've gotten to the end of this, and
Yes, we have,
as you've
yeah.
seen in some of the other podcasts, I opened the floor up to you. I've forced you to talk the entire time and asked you a ton of questions, but I open the floor at the end of every show to allow my guests to ask me a question, because I feel like I need to reciprocate what I've done, and you never know. Sometimes you're going to ask me something I would have never thought to have talked about. In the podcast we just put out, one of the polishers had asked me about my personal life, and I had easily 100 messages from other polishers saying, "Thank you for talking about your personal life with your family and how you balanced work and family because I've been struggling with that for years." And I said, "Well, don't take my advice because I don't balance it all that well." But I couldn't believe how I've never really talked about that. And I think I'm actually going to have my wife and kids on a podcast with me this year to kind of talk about that dynamic between me being gone to work them now coming along to some of the trade shows and stuff with me. So I think we're going to do a family podcast to kind of talk about that work-home relationship.
It is
And
quite interesting because I had a warning from a guy that was 69, and he said, "You've actually sold your youth. You sold your youth to work, and then you sold the time that you would have spent with your children, at a job that most
yeah,
probably doesn't appreciate you." And after 26 years, I was like spending from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock at night, and sometimes maybe even at weekends, and then to walk in on one day to say you've been made redundant.
yeah,
You no matter how good you are, and you've dumped your family for doing this job, and it must for you being so dedicated, like you say, you're all week polishing, maybe Saturday doing office work, then you've only got Sunday left. So
yeah.
it's like,
So I think it'll
yeah.
be
So
interesting to
I
hear
my
what my
more
kids think about it.
Yeah, you have to see what your kids think. How old are your children?
So my oldest is 15, she'll be 16 here in April, and my youngest is going to be, she's 12 right now, going to be 13 in October. So
So
my
do
oldest,
you
I was
you
around a lot when she was little. My wife worked the job. She worked second shift, I worked first shifts that we were alternating parenting. And then when we had my second, we ran into some issues, and I decided my wife was going to be a stay-at-home wife and raise the kids. And we made that work for a long time. And then as my business grew, she had to be re-involved with the business, so she could take days off when she needed to be with the kids if they were sick or whatnot. So she's now back fully involved with the kids now, or with the business now that the kids are getting grown. And now my kids are actually starting to wrap into my business. My little one, she's into social media and into all that stuff. So last summer she came and did a bunch of filming with me here in the shop. I gave her a respirator to put on every day, and had her come out and do some filming so that I could edit it together to make some videos and stuff. That was fun. And my oldest, I think this summer she's actually going to come work for me. One of her friends works here. So I think for her to come and work with me this summer will be a great way for her to fund getting a car, because she'll be driving by July. So having a full-time job where she can come into work every day and make some money to pay off a car at some point will be
mm,
healthy and good for her. So it's transitioning day by day, but the wife still can pull away when she needs to. If one of the kids are sick or if they need to go to the doctor or whatever, she can still take a day off whenever she wants to.
that's good, isn't it?
Um,
Yeah.
I could take days off too. I really enjoy being here. Like when I'm gone on a long trip, I usually try to find a polisher I can hang out with so that I can polish while I'm there. Or when I get home, the first thing I do is I drive to the shop because I miss the smell. I mean, I don't know what it is.
I'll never forget when I was doing it, and a delivery guy came, and he delivered stuff. He said, "Are you a polisher?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "I can smell it." He said, "I used to work in a college where they used to do it, and he could smell the compounds."
Uh, they've all got
So
their
I
own
want to
scent.
say mainly speak to you. It's not a quick one. Is about surface area speed. About all the surface area. And so from your stainless steel to aluminium, do you use a different rotation speed on steel to aluminium?
So that is a great question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that before. Um, Most polishers here in the US have no idea what surface feet per minute is. Most of them know I either run a 6,000 RPM grinder or I run a 3,500 RPM grinder. They don't factor in a 8-inch buff, a 9-inch buff, a 10-inch buff, a 12-inch buff, a 14-inch buff. They don't know the difference. And funny story, I have it here on my computer. I looked it up yesterday because a 6,000 RPM grinder running a 9-inch buff is running at 160.7 miles per hour. The surface feet per minute um, on a 9-inch that's the surface feet per minute on a nine
Yeah,
inch object. So if you were to break that into feet per minute, that number would be ridiculously high because it's 160 miles in 1 hour on a 6,000
yeah,
RPM
yeah.
buffer with a 9-inch buff. And most guys in this industry are running a 10-inch buff, and they're like, I don't know why. when I'm running 6,000 RPM grinder, why I feel like I get a better finish with my 3,500 with a 10-inch. It's because that surface feet per minute drops half
Yeah, yeah.
when you're on a 10-inch
See,
buff on
I'm using
6,500.
that this is 4 inches at
Yep.
3,000,
Yep.
and that's where I get the best finish. If I was
Yep.
to go 6 inches, gets hotter, gets quicker, doesn't do the same. This is in my videos. A lot of times I'm using that
Yep.
that thickness. That's
Yep.
4 inches by ½ inch, and you get the best finish at 3,000 revs per minute. This is obviously on
So
gold and silver.
for
So
aluminum
I
and
was wondering
stainless,
whether aluminium and steel, because I have to do both at the same speed, 3,000. I've got no other way apart from putting a bigger
yep,
mop on to get the
right.
rotation bigger.
Yeah.
So
So the difference between aluminum and stainless steel, my cut is the same. My aluminum, I only work it in one direction. I just push my compound and I start at the bottom and push my compound to the top. On stainless, I'll actually pull my compound back and then push it back forward again because I want to build heat. I find stainless requires a lot more heat to move. So I'll actually heat the part up and then work it. Um, but I cut them both at 6,000. But when I color, my color I'll drop down to 3,500. And then when I go to my finish on aluminum, I'm 1,400 to 2,200 RPM. But on stainless, I'll actually keep my speed at 3,500 to do my finish. I find that the excess heat that it builds gets me a better finish. But like
yeah,
I
it
said,
does. Yeah,
I'm gonna try that pumice to try to build the heat artificially and drop my speed down.
yeah, yeah.
Try to get
Have
it
you
down
tried?
closer to 3,000.
Have you done titanium? Do you do titanium metal?
So I have done some titanium. I did some stuff for um I'm trying to think. Did I sign an NDA on that one or not? I no,
Yeah,
I did some stuff for I don't think I signed an NDA, and even if I did, it should be expired by now. I did some stuff for a satellite that went out into space years back. Um, and there was some titanium parts on it that had to be absolute perfect um, from imperfections on it because it needed to reflect as much amount of heat as possible
yeah,
for
yeah,
going out into the raw sunlight of space, right? Um, so in some of those titanium pieces I did, I just treated them much like I treated stainless,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just spent more time on it. The only thing I realized was that titanium was just like a harder version of stainless, is what I felt. Um, so I used stiffer buffs, I used stiffer compounds, heavier cutting compounds to get the finish I wanted. But yeah, it was pretty neat. Titanium's a whole different
I
animal.
I discovered when I did piece of titanium, it was about that long. It wasn't much, but when I did it straight, I got a fantastic finish. But then I went the other way. It went it went really sort of wavy. It was almost had a grain to it.
Yep.
Um, but another thing that I did do, which was a necklace, and it was made out of stainless steel, and it was CAD, and it was so hard that nobody could do. You could run a file over it, and it would just not touch it. Anyway, I did it, and it was worth £1 million, £1 million necklace.
Holy
Because when
cow.
they sent it for setting, and they couldn't get the diamonds in because the metal was so hard. They couldn't drill it. It was so
Whoa.
hard, and just and this £1 million necklace had a titanium spike, so I had like a hinge on the back,
Yep.
so like a joint, and then they put a pin through it, and it had a titanium spike in it, which cost them at the time about £250 for them to polish something that big. It was I found titanium so difficult to polish.
It
So,
is. It
and to
honestly
say,
is. When you said they all have their own personality,
yeah,
that's exactly
personalities,
it is.
yeah,
They're very snobbish. They've got their nose way in the air because they're
yeah,
titanium's
yeah,
one of the hardest ones. It's one of the hardest ones
it
to
is, yeah,
achieve that
but it's
finish.
worth nothing.
Yeah.
Titanium's got no value over
No,
here,
it doesn't here either.
but it's really
No.
difficult to polish.
But yeah,
So
the surface feet per minute, I do find a 10-inch buff on a 6,000 RPM is just too fast.
yeah, yeah,
It's very quick to burn things. You can burn aluminum very easily. The risk of running a 10-inch buff on a 6,000 RPM is very high because that fabric doesn't, it's got too much torque. It likes to pull out of the center.
yeah, yeah.
No matter who's manufacturing it, I don't care who's manufacturing it, almost all wants to pull out. Um, You'll have blowouts from time to time, but I find for my primary cut, either 3,500 or 6,000. 5,000 RPM with a 9-inch buff is the perfect speed for cutting, but nobody makes a machine for it. You can find some variables, but usually the variable machines don't have enough torque to
No, no.
accomplish the
Even
job.
I got a variable machine, only goes up to 4,500.
Yep,
That's
4,500's
it.
like the sweet spot. Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know what the exact surface feet per minute is, and I look that up in my Polisher's Bible all the time. The surface feet per minute is one main thing that they touch on all the time for that perfection finishing. And I've tried getting close to it, but they don't factor in pressure and heat and temperature and
no,
humidity
no.
and all those other things. Like when the temperature's high or the humidity's high, when humidity's high in your shop, your compounds are going to gum up on your machine. Like that pad is soaking in the moisture in the air. So when the humidity's really low, you need even less compound to get the job done. So there's so many different factors that vary into that surface feet per minute. But
We don't
I
have
did
that. We don't
notice,
have humidity over here. We don't have that problem.
yeah, we have it bad here. We're
Yeah,
In Wisconsin here, we have more lakes than Minnesota, and Minnesota is the one known for its lakes. But we have more lakes, we have more surface feet of water in our area than most other states, and it
yeah,
gets
yeah.
really wet here in the summer sometimes. But yeah,
So
lots of
that's it,
factors
really.
to polishing.
Yeah, we have
Honestly,
where we are here in Glastonbury. We have it's called the Somerset Levels. So all around here at the moment is all wet. All the fields are like lakes. They're all full of
sure,
water,
sure.
and well, hopefully not long now they'll all be dried up again, and we'll be back because we're below sea level.
Yeah.
So that's the main problem. So
Huh.
yeah,
I never really
What's
paid
the
attention
time?
to the listen, it's always time to shine.
Yeah, it's always time to shine.
No, it
A
is
good ending.
12:30 here. 12:30 here.
12:30. We
But
better go then
honestly,
because my
yeah,
dinner's ready.
this was really great. Honestly, Steve, I can't thank you enough for doing this. There is a lot of really good information to come out of this. There's some life-changing information that came out of this for me. And honestly, I'd like to have you back on again maybe next season.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
just to maybe get you in with a couple other polishers and just have a little round table.
Have a
Because with
chat.
this
Yeah.
Zoom, I can do up to 50 people in one room. So I want to try to
Well,
get a couple
maybe we ought to
polishers
have
together.
my friend from Sheffield called Kurt, and if he gets on there with you, then you have a different perspective because he's younger than me, obviously, and
That would be awesome.
he's trying to get noticed, whereas I've been noticed, and now he needs to be noticed.
Well, listen, I'm honored to have you. I know the
Thank you.
reputation that you come with, and I've like I said, I've followed your stuff for a while now, and yeah, I've been super impressed with all of your stuff. I'm glad to have shined a different perspective on this, and I'm grateful to have had you, and hopefully we can get your friend on. If you can talk him
Yeah.
into it, I'd
Thank you
love to
very
have him
much.
on.
Cheers, Evan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Boots on the floor, yeah, we about to go. Another episode down, thought you ought to know. From the shop to the truck, you've been riding along. Tuned all the way in, now we're closing this song. Hey! Thank you for listening. Yeah. We feel that hard to the Polisher's Corner parties. Thank you for listening. You're a big part of the Polisher's Corner party. One more time. Thank you for listening to the Polisher's Corner.